How many of you are planning a trip to Scotland this summer or maybe next year, sometime in the future? It's a good time of year to kind of consider that and look at that topic. So many messages, so many emails come in from you guys asking for tips and guidance on where to go and what to do. And so we can touch on that a wee bit tonight. My guests joining me tonight have just completed a trip of Scotland, and I haven't heard anything about it. I've not had any feedback or anything. It's all going to be fresh tonight. It's going to be interesting to hear how they got on. But I think what is valuable is a couple of things, a couple of fresh perspectives here. These are Kentuckians coming to Scotland for the first time, but they're also bourbon fans, bourbon drinkers. In fact, they've built up the fantastic, long established, much celebrated It's Bourbon Night channel on the back of their love for bourbon. So for them to come into the Scotch space is going to be, I think, a valuable perspective, at the very least interesting for everyone. That's what I'm looking forward to tonight, and I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to Thursday night. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Something odd is going on with my sound. That's what's going on with it. That's okay. So I can fix that. Fantastic. It's always when you've got guests on that things go a wee bit screwy, but it's absolutely fine. Hope you're all doing very well. Welcome. Yes, it's another guest session tonight. I've got Chad and Sara from It's Bourbon Night waiting in the background. As I was saying in the intro there, and I think the value here is when you guys are coming to Scotland, whether you're just coming from down south, whether you're coming from a different part of Scotland, whether you're coming from Europe or further afield, you tend to, if you're watching me and you're involved in the vPub in this channel, you're going to have a very fixed and focused idea of the things that you want to try and achieve, depending on where you're going to go. But I think it's always interesting to hear from people, whether it's your first time or not, to hear from people that's been here, their experiences, how it matched their expectations or how it differed, how valuable it was, and did any serendipity play a hand? Did kind of some interesting, cool little things happen? What would you do differently next time? Would you pick up the pace and try and do more, or would you cut back on things and slow down a little bit? It's especially interesting tonight, I think, because Chad and Sara have, over the years, been bullied to try Scotch by many, many channels. They've done a lot of collaborations where kind of Scotch-focused or general whiskey-focused channels have joined them in a collaborative way and kind of had them sipping Scotch. And that's a kind of tricky thing to do, I think, because when you love bourbon and bourbon is your lane and that flavor profile and you get to know it very, very intimately, the variation of flavor and Scotch can really seem all over the place. And I think it can almost seem maybe a little bit intimidating, much in the same way potentially bourbon is sometimes an intimidating space for me. If anybody's hearing birds chirping in the background, it's because it's really warm in Scotland today. It's been very hot and sunny, so I've had this window open just to let a bit of air in, and now we've got some birds sitting outside in the late evening making a right old noise. I'll close the window if I have to. Anyway, before I welcome in Chad and Sara, I'm going to jump in to the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. How are you all? You're all doing fantastically well. Now, I do need to find my window in order to... There we go. Get my sound back on. That's done. Fantastic. Let's jump into the lounge. Remember, I'm looking for the orange. If you're trying to get my attention, just type Aquavitae and I'll do my very best to try and see it. Hope I've not missed anything from you so far. Alistair Gray's here. Good evening, Alistair. He's saying good evening, Aquavitae. And the barflies, good to see you. Sugar Kitty is saying check out Chad and Sara. And it's Bourbon Night, and he's dropping in. You're a star, Sugar Kitty. Fantastic. He's dropping in the link for Chad and Sara's Bourbon channel. I would be surprised if any of you didn't know Chad and Sara from It's Bourbon Night, and I'm sure after tonight you will be heading over there to give them a wee sub. Whiskey Weekend Dram, Harrow is in, saying next year, I thank you for all the tips I got from you in 2019 during a vPub. Harrow, I'm going to raise a wee glass to you, buddy. I hear it's a very big birthday for you this week. I think we've missed it by a day. I think it was yesterday, but no matter. Everybody, Whiskey Weekend Dram Harrow is celebrating. I won't tell what birthday it is, Harrow, but we'll raise a glass and say many happy returns, my friend. It's wonderful to have you in. Cheers, buddy. Happy birthday. Good to see you, and I'm glad you got some good advice when you were joining us in 2019. Andy Walker is here. Good to see you, Andy. Hope you're keeping well, buddy. Saying good evening, Roy. And Gary Cobb is here too. Gary's heading up to Scotland very soon, actually, in the next couple of days. If you're not here already, Gary, hoping to cross paths with you, maybe starting next week. Max Kreitner is here too. Good evening, Roy from the Kreitners. Good to see you, buddy. I've managed to meet you a few times, of course, but not yet on Scottish soil. I've had to make my way to Central Europe for that, Max, haven't I? Bruno Martins is here from Portugal. Good to see you, Bruno. Good evening, Roy. I saw a beautiful photo where you and Seb were standing in front of nice bottles. Wonderful to have Seb is a Scot, actually. I was welcoming him back home, but obviously he's stationed out in Lisbon next to you, Bruno. And he was telling me the tales of you guys getting together and enjoying drams, and that's just a fantastic thing that you guys can meet each other and become friends through the platform that is this amazing thing. Brilliant to see you, Bruno. Jimmy Legg is here. Good to see you, Jimmy. It's not a vPub unless you're actually in here, buddy. Always great to welcome you. And David Lorenko, also in Portugal, David, I believe. I saw a photo. Yes, I saw a photo of my friend Seb K just yesterday and was full of jealousy. When will we have the vPub World Tour passing here in Lisbon? Is that how it has to be, David? I have to come over there to you. You can't make it here, buddy. I would love to make it back to Portugal one day. Gerben is here. Good to see you, Gerben. I hope retirement's treating you well, buddy. And Pedro Menezes is in from Brazil saying, good evening, Barflies. Good to see you, buddy. Always nice to welcome you in. Keith McDonald, good to see you, buddy. I hope your brother's well too. I watched the post-video trip they put out. Definitely appears that Scotch is easier to find in America than bourbon is to Scotland. Yeah, I could have probably told them that before they headed over, but they did manage to find a few nice things. There was plenty of Blantons around that I noticed. Jerry Miller is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see Jerry. And Malt Brother Ray is here saying good evening. And Gordon Fraser is saying good evening. Garden Dramming suspended on accounts of the vPub. It's getting a wee bit late and cooler now, Gordon, as well. It's probably nicer that you're tucked up indoors. Always brilliant to have you here, buddy. Are you still sipping on your McLean's nose? Excess to Scotch is saying from the Netherlands, good evening, Roy and Barflies. Good to see you, buddy. It's always great to welcome you in. And Graham Young from Canada is here saying good evening too. Fantastic stuff. I will try my very, very best to keep my eye on the orange as we scroll through the night and as we chat to Chad and Sara. They were on the channel before, back in, I can't believe it was 3 years ago now. It was May in 2020. I checked just before I went live tonight. But it was a different topic then. I was the one sitting there sipping bourbon, and there was a couple of bourbons that really struck me. I remember the Stag Junior that I enjoyed that night, but I very vividly remember Store Pick Knob Creek. That was actually a gift to me from Ross, Jill, and Ross Mashburn, and it sat on the shelf for a long time. And after I discovered it on the live stream with Chad and Sara back in 2020, it didn't last very long. I polished it off quite quickly. It was amazing, amazing stuff. And I tend to find that so far for me, bourbon has been a thing that I've enjoyed at higher ABV. But I've got 6 bourbon samples in front of me. All of these have been given to me by Chad and Sara when I met up with them when they were in Scotland. And these are absolutely not a chance that I would get these in Scotland type bourbons. In fact, I've split them into 2 threes. I'm going to sip the first 3. It's Bourbon Night picks, more or less they are. And then there's 3 that I recognize clearly as being unicorn bourbons. And I'll maybe do a little poll later in the stream so you guys can pick which of these I sip tonight. But let's not leave Chad and Sara sitting in the background waiting for me while I monologue to all of you. Let's bring them in. Let's see how they're doing and hope that they're all well. Chad and Sara, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Hi.
We're lovely.
Oh, geez. Don't
Oh, there we go.
Accent. Oh, here we go. Who had the over-under on how many seconds it was going to take for Chad to do an accent?
But that's
If
okay.
you had
Before
1
the end
second
of the
or
night-
under.
Before the end of the night, we'll have you doing a wee bit of the accent as well. And I suppose that means I have to try and copy yours, but we'll wait till we've got a drama or two in us for
sounds
that to
good.
start happening. Welcome back behind the
Yeah.
bar for the second time. it's nuts for me to have
Whee!
searched for that video and work out. It was 3 years ago you guys were here bullying
That's
me with
nuts.
bourbon.
Time has been.
Yeah.
I did like that when you said that we've been bullied to drink Scotch. I'm like, Chad feels personally victimized
Nah.
by Scotch.
Nah.
Well, I think a good way to start
little.
out. You guys have got a very fixed platform, very successful platform, very easy to watch, wonderful content, insightful stuff. You've been going now for what, 7 years, maybe more?
7 years in July.
Very close to it. Yep.
Wow, 7 years. So, I hope that everybody in here knows the quality of what you guys are putting out now. I know that we don't put a lot of value on subscribers, but you guys have already hit the magical 100,000 subscribers, haven't you, and surpassed that. Just excellent quality stuff. However, I want to propose something to you. I want to suggest I have got a channel that's well known for being Scotch and Scotch focused, but I am very whiskey promiscuous. People still know that my comfort zone is Scotch, and if they're going to ask me for an opinion or hear me speaking loudly about things from my soapbox, as I often do, it's going to be a Scotch thing. And I think that should be the same with you. I will put it to you and we'll see what your opinion is tonight, that throughout tonight, it might come out that through you sipping other styles of whiskey, your appreciation for bourbon is potentially amplified. Is that too big a claim to start with?
I'll answer first. I think that maybe our opinions might differ, but I agree with what you're saying. Like, this has kind of opened the door for me to other types of whiskey. And I'm excited about that because every time I taste something new, yes, it's a new experience and I might like it or I might not, but I experience, tasting notes or just the experience of tasting something different that, whether good or bad, I learned something and it gives me more tools to take back to the next time I go back to bourbon. It kind of expands. Yep. It's like the more flavors you're familiar with in your kitchen, the more you're going to be able to identify in your bourbon. Baking spices. Like if you've only ever tasted cinnamon, how will you know what clove is? And I kind of feel the same thing about whiskey. In fact, we had Japanese whiskey last night, and previously I had said I don't like Japanese whiskey because it tastes too much like Scotch. I enjoyed all 3 of the Japanese whiskeys that I tried last night.
Same.
So I think a door has been opened for us.
Well, let me ask you before we go to Chad. The first time you tried bourbon, you couldn't have liked it, Sarah, though, right?
I didn't. No, that's true. The first thing that I actually managed to drink was like boxed white Zinfandel wine from the bag. So let's not, like, our tastes can grow and change. I would never drink that now.
Yeah.
And everything needs that investment, doesn't it? Absolutely.
Sure. It's just everything's a stepping stone, right? You don't have to force yourself to get there before you're ready. But as a channel, I think I could be whiskey promiscuous, as you say. I think there's so much in the world to enjoy and explore. Although bourbon will always be our home.
Yeah, that's right. What say you, Chad?
Now you may go, Chad.
Well, I think if I remember right, you asked, will this bring on a new appreciation for bourbon? And whereas I agree with everything Sarah said, yeah, I think so. And I think I've made this analogy before, but I remember a musician, I think it might have been Kirk Hammett, the lead guitar player of Metallica. Someone was asking him, what does he do to get inspired to write new music? And he said, I go and listen to anything but the genre of music that I write. I'll go and listen to classical music or, rockabilly or anything that's not in his genre, because that's going to spark inspiration that he can then take over to his genre. And it's sort of the same with bourbon. I mean, we haven't had any complaints ourselves drinking bourbon regularly for the past almost 7 years on the channel. But, anything you do repeatedly and over, no matter how much you love it, can lose a little bit of the sheen. I don't want to say it gets repetitive or boring or anything.
We could taste every day and we still wouldn't try all the bourbons.
You could maybe lose sight of your original passion if you're always just doing the same thing. So
we all need a reset. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So breaking out
for me
into other.
doing kind of mostly Scotch content, I I think if I did bourbon vPubs, they would be very quiet vPubs because the audience I've built up is based around Scotch. So, but it
Mhm.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean that off camera or in my downtime or when I'm at whiskey clubs and tasting events or whatever it may be, it doesn't mean I'm not reaching for bourbons, especially if I recognize things that I haven't tried before. So, I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I hope maybe there's some people in the chat starting to say, yay, they've turned to the dark side and all of this kind of thing. There's some people suggesting that you've,
The light
but
side.
I think, yeah. Well, it's certainly perhaps when it comes to peaty and smoky scotches, I know that's
The
tended
dark
to be the
side.
thing that were the most challenging for you in the past. And I think that
Mhm.
analogy that you mentioned there, I think we even shared that. You mentioned it when I appeared on your live stream just a few weeks ago, just the week before you headed out here. So it makes perfect sense. So that kind of sets the scene. You're a bourbon channel. I'm mostly focused on Scotch, but we're quite comfortable now, which is different from the last time we were collaborating together. We're quite comfortable now and relaxed a wee bit about reaching out and trying something else. Although I am picking
Mhm.
up a minor vibe that Chad is maybe a bit more reserved. Sarah's maybe a bit more keen. I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see how the night goes on, shall we?
I think that's just an optics thing, honestly.
It's an optics
yeah, if we're being
thing.
completely honest, I worry more about perception from our hardcore audience. I just want to make sure that we temper their expectations and no one gets nervous that, hey, we're leaving bourbon for Scotch. So no, I share the same enthusiasm as Sarah. Just for whatever reason, I'm a little bit more
Yeah. Chad doesn't want to give anyone the impression that we're going to change our name to It's Whiskey Night, where
Right.
the E's in a parentheses.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I just sort of temper
And
that.
I
No,
think
just as enthusiastic.
there's no reason for that to ever happen. If you are looking at optics and that potentially being a thing, you need to get the message across that you've become more valuable commentators to your audience through experiencing other brown spirits. That's the thing there. And It's Bourbon Night remains It's Bourbon Night, and you continue doing what you've found to be your lane, the thing that you enjoy, the thing that you love, and the thing that you've built. Same as me, the thing that we've built an audience around. So we're in a safe space here. We can evangelize about each
Thank you,
other's
Roy.
things. We can drink each other's whiskies, and there are no mixed messages here. The community knows. So let's move quickly to the next thing, because if you are worried about optics, Chad and Sarah jumping on a plane and going to Scotland, that's going to potentially send an electric bolt of panic to your audience. And yet you did it. And every image I saw, every little clip of footage, everything, I saw smiles. I saw contentment. I saw a vibe of happiness. And I know that that's got so much to do with the fact that you made the trip with patrons and so many friends. But tell me, and I'm going to turn and look at your reaction as soon as I ask, did you enjoy Scotland?
Oh, yeah.
1 million out of 10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how many times since we left have I been like, I want to go back. I want to go back. I want to go back. I wish I lived there. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, it reminds me. Oh, so go ahead.
No, sorry. I think because there's tonight, I don't know if we can do anything about it. There is a slight delay, but it's only a beat. It's only like a second or two, but it's fine. I'll just try not to continually talk over you tonight. Sorry. Continue, Sarah, please.
Oh, I was just going to say it reminded me of a more epic version of Kentucky. Like all the, the green and the rolling hills. It's very Kentucky-esque, but just like 10 times more epic.
Yeah. Well, and I think as you probably traveled from east to west, you would have seen the rolling hills gradually become perhaps a wee bit more dynamic, a little bit more rugged, a little bit more. And it's that kind of east and west vibe that's going on here as well. I don't know if you have that different topography in Kentucky.
We do. Yeah, we do. You go eastern Kentucky,
Appalachian
Mountains. Yeah, it gets a lot hillier. But there was times where we're looking out the window on the bus where if it was a particular stretch of land, you could be like, oh, I could be looking at Kentucky right now. But then you turn a bend and then there's, sheep and mountains and everything else. You're like, no, okay, well, not now. But you can see a lot of shared shared topography and things between the two.
Yeah. It was just
Well,
breathtaking.
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you enjoyed the landscape. Let's talk about the
Well,
liquid too. Let's get something in your glass. I'm gonna ask you to pick one for me first. The first three I've got here are three that you've given me. Two it's Bourbon Night picks, barrel picks, your Russell's Reserve, which was to celebrate your 100,000 subscribers by the look of it. 55% ABV from a single barrel. And I've also got a 4-gate It's Bourbon Night pick, toasted oak rye, an 8-year-old at 57.8% ABV. But I've also got something that might give me a bit of a flushed red face more than it already is, and a bit of a Kentucky hug. I've got a 67.2% William Heaven Hill 12-year. Which of these should I be pouring?
I would probably recommend you
Start
start with
with
the
the
Russells.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Proof wise, and then also that rye. Although it's a toasted rye, so a lot of those more effervescent rye notes are kind of quelled down. And then obviously the William Heaven Hill
would be later.
Would be later. It's
Perfect.
That one's pretty punchy.
It's pretty punchy, yeah.
Well, you've sent me a list of some of the bottles that you brought back, and you've gone into a fairly intimidating, completely unfamiliar, strange space. You're looking at all these brands, all these names. You don't know if it's a brand name or a name of a distillery. You don't know if it's single malt Scotch or blended Scotch. You're just looking at these things, and I got that feedback and that impression from your videos. But you've managed to pick up a little kind of cookie trail of minis and bottles and things, and you've got some in front of you. Is the Dalmore 12 part of it? Is it there?
I think that's in the box.
That's in our
Good. I've been wanting to get into this box.
Yeah, that's in our
Okay.
this is our
So
first actual pickup.
You picked up that's like a selection box of Scotch whiskies, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is the only time possibly that Dalmore 12 is likely to ever exist or be presented. That's not true. I'm sure it's been in the past, but on the vPub, it's a very rare thing to be mentioned in the vPub, and it's
Really?
I've got half a mind to have a side eye on the chat to see what they're saying about it. But it gives me an opportunity to speak about a couple of concepts that differentiate Scotch and bourbon. Dalmore is a very successful, very popular globally, and sells very, very well right across the globe. You'll often see it in boutique shops, you'll see it in duty frees, but also you go into whiskey specialists and you'll see it on the shelf as well. It gets a real hard time by the whiskey enthusiasts because it's packaged in such a way to make it very easy, very smooth, very drinkable. It's also engineered a little as well, and that means that the chill filtration is heavy, especially because I think it's a 40% ABV, the one you're sipping. It might say on the bottle.
This one, 43.
43% ABV. It's chill filtered, but it's also, we don't know if it's colored, but the suspicion is, and the general word is that it's heavily colored also. Now, I know that chill filtration is an issue that you discuss in bourbon. So let's talk about that first. Is it an issue in bourbon? What's your opinion on chill filtration?
I'm anti-chill filtration.
Yeah.
Not that I won't drink it.
Right. Non-chill filtered, some places use it as sort of a marketing point. In our experience, they'll chill filter to keep the cloudiness from occurring over certain proofs, and if you add ice. But with our experience, we want those fatty acids left in. We want the good stuff left in.
That's what gives you. I feel like that's where you get a lot of texture and mouthfeel. And when you take that away, you lose that just like oily, buttery, creamy aspect that you can get to whiskey. And I want that. I don't care if there's a little bit of cloudiness. And I feel like if there was more education done on the side of the big distilleries, there would be less of that. I think they're going that way, though. You see a lot of non-chill filtered expressions that are more aimed at enthusiasts and connoisseurs versus like your everyday on the shelf products for the masses.
Right.
I get why they have to chill filter like Jim Beam White Label, because the everyday person, you can't educate everybody.
That's too low proof anyway for it to matter.
Well, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, like, something like Knob Creek.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Because like
And
anybody can walk in
I
and pick
think
up a
that
not
these
pretty coffee shop.
producers are probably being driven by the zeitgeist of the consumer preferences. You know, it might be enthusiasts today, but as that becomes more and more widely understood, the more people perhaps will start to demand it. I don't want to dwell on this too much because it's not our topic tonight, but I think it's interesting to compare the two. And also, if we were to take a bourbon or two bourbons together or two scotches, and one was chill filtered and one wasn't, we wouldn't always be, I think, confident that we'd be able to pick which is which, but we're not basing it on two. We're basing it on our experience of 200 or 2,000 of each. That's what kind of builds up our reference library of what we end up preferring. And if you look at the ones that remain on the shelf and stay on the shelf that get replaced and repurchased, I think for me, it tends to be the more naturally presented, less fettled, unchill filtered scotches too. So it's that's interesting to hear, despite the fact that malt scotch is based on barley and bourbon is, you know, majority, at least 51% in every bourbon is corn, right? So it's an interesting concept. What about color? What's your opinion, Chad, on color?
Darker the better most of the time.
Well,
in general, I mean, color, if I had to rank them with palate and nose and mouthfeel, color would be last.
Finish. Color would be
and
last.
finish, it would be last. I mean, color is a great thing, and it's always something that, you know, that we kind of look at, and it can give us some clues before we taste it. Like, this is darker, maybe it's finished, maybe it's higher proof, you know, things.
Right, less diluted. But are you talking about adding color?
Yes, this is why I am jealous of you, because you get to raise your glass of bourbon to the light, don't you? And you can appreciate the color regardless, and you can actually take feedback from the color in order to lead you into what the experience might offer. If you hold up that glass that's in your hand right now, and I don't mean to throw shade on Dalmore, as I said, they are very successful, but they are quite happy to pop in Spirit Caramel E150E, and we don't know the natural color of that whiskey in your glass.
Yeah.
Knowing that, it's not particularly dark. Even.
I'm opposed, but for a Scotch, it's on the
for a 43%.
I call it a medium side of color, but I'm opposed to adding color. Like, obviously, you can't do it in bourbon, and I do, even though bourbon has some strict rules. Like, I appreciate that rule being in place for the reasons that you just said. But yeah, in terms of Scotch, like, I think that when we were trying things, and to our knowledge, or at least as much as we know, we tried to avoid anything that had color added. I don't know if that includes everything that's here, but again, like, to our knowledge, we tried to avoid.
Yeah, because, you know, it's not adding any flavor, obviously, right?
Yeah,
I would hope not.
But like, what's in the coloring?
Actually, I'll argue that, especially in the case of things like the Dalmore you're holding, once you've had enough heavily caramel colored whiskies in your whiskey tasting life, you start to pick up on a trait that I believe is brought about by adding caramel color. And it's not just a flavor effect, it's a smoothing effect. It's a kind of emulsification. It's a rounding out that happens with caramel added. And but that's just my opinion. I'm being encouraged by the chat. Seb K is saying, throw that shade. Lowlander is saying, throw as much shade at Dalmore, they deserve it. So you can see the gut reaction is the same as you guys. It's not liked. And Whiskey and Wine Trails Tom is saying, Roy, they're one of us. And Ian Bruce is saying, I'm enjoying the wild turkey rare breed barrel proof along with a pint of Black Heart. These go together well. What is the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference with straight bourbon? Wow, we're not talking about Scotland much tonight, Ian, but I will ask, what's the difference between straight bourbon and bourbon?
Straight bourbon is just a age requirement. It has to be at least 2 years old for it to have the straight connotation or distinction. There we go.
So if you see that on a label, you know it's at least 2 years old.
Yeah. So Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, you'll see a lot. It just means it's from Kentucky. It's straight, so it's at least 2 years old, and it's bourbon whiskey. But it doesn't have to be. That's where the misnomer. A lot of people get the misnomer that it has to be 2 years old to be bourbon. It can touch the barrel and then be dumped, 30 seconds
5
later,
minutes later,
and it could technically be classified as bourbon. It wouldn't have any color.
We wouldn't want to drink it.
We wouldn't want to drink it. It would basically just be White Dog or New Make, but it would could be called bourbon. Yeah.
And if it's under 4 years, it has to be age stated.
If it's under 4 years, it has to be age stated. There's also the bottled and bond category that its minimum is 4 years.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
there's a few classifications with age statements, but generally no age statement required or age minimum for bourbon.
Mhm.
And there's an ABV requirement to the bottled and bond as well, right?
Correct. 100 proof.
Yep.
Yeah.
It can only be
50%
100
ABV.
proof.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I hope
Whereas
that,
with Scotch, we learned you have to be three years in 1 day, right?
that's
Isn't
a
that
misnomer
the
too. That's a misnomer. The 1 day is
really? It
not.
was on
Yeah.
so many.
Yeah, I know, but the 1 day is added as a kind of a safety thing, right? It's the legislation is 3 years, but you
Got it.
often hear it
Okay.
3 years in a day. You often just hear
In a
that.
day.
I guess.
Okay.
So the law is 3 years. So, but the practice potentially a lot of places is 3 years in a day. But I don't know. Maybe I'm naive, but I can't imagine there's that much whiskey as being. Maybe in the cheaper blends and the cheaper products and things, maybe if I put my cynical hat on, there is lots of people literally counting down on their watch, waiting for this whiskey to hit 3 years so they can get it dumped. But I don't think it's normally happening. So usually it's not really an issue. But 3 years and 1 day is kind of the thing that's mentioned around.
So if anyone did want to release well, it wouldn't be Scotch, but if they had some whiskey that was 2 years old that they just couldn't wait for it to turn 3 and they release it, it would just have to be whiskey. It would just be listed as whiskey, right?
No, you can't put the word whiskey on the bottle if it's less than 3 years old.
So what would it be?
A spirit?
Spirit. It's just you can put on various kind of nondescript things like pure PBS, pure British Spirit, or you can just put on spirit drink. Lots of things. I mean, I know that in the States you say White Dog, but for us it's New Make or in Gaelic Clearac.
You make
It's not really a sold product. We don't have it as if you're going to sell whiskey in the UK or Europe and further afield.
You're gonna wait
3 years. 3 years is the is the thing. Yeah.
Well, see, I asked that because, like, if something doesn't meet the rules of bourbon, it just becomes an American whiskey.
Mhm.
So I thought maybe it couldn't have the Scotch categorization. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, okay, so not even whiskey at all.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
If to put Scotch on the bottle, absolutely. It has to be made in Scotland. It has to be matured in Scotland. And for single malt, it has to be bottled in Scotland too. Blended whiskey can be exported in bulk, but not single malt Scotch. You are sipping a single malt Scotch, so that meets all of those requirements. And it has 12 years old, so the youngest cask that's gone into the vatting for that has to be minimum 12 years old. What's your feeling of it?
I'm personally
She's mad.
angry that they've added color. Actually, I think my philosophy
That's my
with
fault.
bourbon, and it seems to just carry over to Scotch. I'm sure it would carry over to other international categories. My philosophy is I want it as close to the source as possible. So the least amount of interference with how it came out of the barrel. I don't want it chill filtered. In Scotch case, don't want any color added or any other flavorings. I don't want, personally, the less water added, the better for me, because I'd like to decide.
Let me add that water.
How much I'd like to dilute it. Yeah. If I want to dilute it at all. So I guess, is that a purist?
I understand the ABV barrier for a lot of people, but as soon as we get over that barrier, that hurdle and that investment curve of enjoying whiskey and adapting to that ABV, we very quickly chase up the ABV ladder, don't we? The closer that we can get to that cask strength, the better. And it's kind of nuts now that I'm just hopefully at some point tonight going to pour that 67% ABV, and I'm mindful of it. I'm not really intimidated by it at all from a flavor or an enjoyment perspective, because I know how good a vehicle for flavor ABV can be, and you guys know too. Again, the chat are saying they're one of us, right? It's very different drinks, different takes on whiskey, different takes on brown spirit, but it's similar. So you've landed in Scotland, and I didn't tell you to watch out for all these banana skins, all of these kind of, because you guys are already invested in whiskey. You already like higher ABV. You're already conditioned to that. So I didn't warn you to say, look, there's lots of stuff out there that's mass market whiskey. It's 40%, 43% ABV. It may not hold your interest, because you need to find your own path. You need to pick up your own whiskies, and you need to do the work. You need to put the effort in, so that at some point in the future, if you're going to talk about those whiskies, you have to have the experience and not just a vicarious message from Roy or anyone else, right? So you're sitting there sipping a Dalmore 12. If you were to score it, what would you do? You guys don't score, do you?
We can score it.
We only score.
What are we scoring out of?
At the end of the year when we score our blind, best bourbons of the year. But yeah, typically we don't score. But
out of 10, out of 100, what do we?
We do out of 100.
I mean, it's the same thing. I'm just gonna give it a percent instead of a
point
out of 10.
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna give it. Maybe this is too harsh. I don't know. Maybe it's not harsh enough. I'm gonna give it a 3.
Whoa! So a 30?
A 30.
Damn.
Well, I don't think I don't think they convert very well because the 100-point scale's been taken from wine. Anything below 70 or 75 is kind of brutal, right? But and
true,
0 out of 10, you can go down to 3 out of 10. Sarah, I support that. That's exactly the score that the part of a team that runs a site called Dramface, and Dramface scored that Dalmore a 3 out of 10 too. Chad, what would you do? What would you?
I would give it a 3. No, I don't know. I mean, I would probably have out of 10, probably given it a 5. I think it is
good.
It's average. There's.
I don't think we can't cast.
Here's my thing.
Whiskey. It's just perhaps a bit benign, maybe. Or
exactly. For me to give something a 3 out of a 10, there's going to have to be something in there that is objectionable.
There is color.
Well, yeah, but if Roy hadn't told you that,
I still don't like it.
Well, sure, but
this is probably one of my least favorite things, if not my least favorite thing that we tasted out of all the scotches we tasted the whole time we were over there and everything we've brought back.
That's fair.
I think it's the least exceptional of all of them.
I would probably agree with that too.
White Mackay now, the company that owns that distillery, Dalmore. Specifically, one of my favorites is a Fettercairn. I know you guys have got the 12-year-old, but their 16-year-old has made the move to be fully natural now, and they write it on the bottle. Thank you, Fettercairn.
We like that.
What a difference! It's resplendent, it's alive, and we can really go for it and just really enjoy it without that anxiety of being kind of suspicious of it and not wanting to like something because we know we're robbed of one of the pleasures of enjoyment of whiskey, and that is fake color. Of course.
We love transparency.
Absolutely. Transparency is the perfect word. Absolutely. So let's, as we move on to the next topic, let's just go for it and pour that super dark Glenallachie. Look how dark that is. Look how dark it is.
Look at her.
Now, if you hold that up to the light at all, I mean, you cannot see through that. That's opaque. So, and that we know that Glenallachie, because Billy Walker is the man at the helm now, and for the last few years, all Glenallachies have been released as 100% natural whiskies. Gorgeous color, right?
Beautiful.
Pedro Jimenez cask here, probably initially an ex-bourbon, and then it's been moved over to a PX, a Pedro Jimenez cask. Jimmy Legg is saying, can you ask if they differentiate between column still and pot still bourbon? Jimmy, thanks for your dram, buddy. Thanks always. Do you guys differentiate between pot still bourbon and column still bourbon?
It'll be on the label sometimes or on the website.
Sometimes, but it's not like a different classification. It's more of a marketing thing.
Yeah, more marketing. That's a good.
So you don't taste the difference between a pot still and a column still?
Well, that's not exactly true, but
some brands pride themselves on being a pot still versus a column
it's
still.
not regulated as like a segment of bourbon whiskey. So yeah, there can absolutely be different tastes in it, but
that's Russell's Reserve. This is a column still, right?
That would be a column.
Yeah, column still. 55% ABV. This is drier than I expected. This Russell's Reserve. I know we're sipping different drinks tonight. I just wanted to give some feedback. There's a kind of dry note to it. There's more texture than I expected. It's not just. There's also a green note to it. It's hard for me to put my finger on what it is, but I'm going to suggest it's almost like a little bit of like a green tea finish at the end, and that's all I'll say.
Interesting.
It's lovely, lightly gently spiced with cinnamon, a little bit of warmth to it. Very easy, very drinkable, very approachable, very good. I think this is your pick as well, isn't it?
That's right.
Yes, that is.
Would you suggest this is dry? Would you describe this as a dry whiskey from memory?
Not
Probably not.
in my memory. No, maybe a little earthy.
Yeah, maybe I would give you like earthy, herbal, and that spice, that cinnamon. I feel like those all hit very much the notes of how
The
we would
herbal,
describe
yep.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, herbal.
Herbal.
I love that.
Oh yeah.
Herbal.
And as opposed to, well, there is an H there, right? You guys just drop it.
There is. We're like herbal.
Herbal. Yeah.
We just chop it off.
We don't have time
Yeah.
to say
At least we
H's.
don't change 2 letters into 1 letter.
Z to Z.
No, it was like what was it? DB or DH into V.
Oh.
Oh no,
Yeah.
but that's
Back
not
to our-
that's not English.
lessons.
That's Gaelic. So
Gaelic.
That's Gaelic.
That's
True.
Gaelic.
Okay,
Well,
fair.
MH as well as MH is pronounced with that sound too, that V sound too. And I know that
That's
would have
right.
tied you up and not
MH
spell you up
second.
here, but you've just
Y'all crazy.
you've
little
just got
bit.
to have fun with it. Yeah. Let us tell us how you came to enjoy a single cask Glenallachie.
Mm.
So we were in the town of Oban. I'm sure
Yep.
you visited Oban. Yeah, lovely little town. We went to this bar there called
The Whiskey
Whiskey
Vaults.
Vaults.
Yep.
And their whole shtick is it's all single casks. So I just went up to the bartender. I said, so far I've liked XYZ. I would like something that tastes like those, and I would like it to be cask strength, please. And he said, okay, I recommend this one. It's this many pounds. Is that okay? Yes. Poured it. All right. I'll be back. I'll be back in 10 minutes. This is good. And then just kept going back and say,
Not every 10 minutes.
not every 10 minutes, but every so often, and say, okay, what do you got for me next? And then bartender would serve out something else. Eventually, I think it might have been my third drink, was a Glenallachie 13-year single cask. Cask strength, of course, that was my requirement.
It was very
And
good.
Talk about lovely. It was lovely.
You've got to stop.
We don't mind. We don't mind. It's actually quite
yeah.
good. It's getting better as the night goes on.
It's getting
Lovely.
Yeah, see, yeah. Oh, I had it pretty good while I was
Lovely.
while I was over there because I was immersed in it from our bus driver and other people. But yeah, it was my favorite pour of the evening at that bar, and it was just
One of the favorite pours of the trip.
it was great. That's why we got the little Glenallachie 12. That's just like
It was a little, souvenir reminder.
straight off the shelf. And then Don Ishida, who couldn't join us
cool.
on the trip, but he's joined us on other Kentucky trips.
Mhm, a patron.
One of our patrons and friends. He brought this to us last night. He's in Kentucky right now.
He heard how much we liked the Glenallachie and decided to
Yeah.
bring us this.
So it's a
I
broken
reckon
barrel
I
club.
recognize Don's name. He's been around the whiskey community on YouTube for many, many years.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has,
Very
yes. He's a
generous
great
gesture.
guy.
Good man,
Yeah.
Don. You keep bringing it.
He's great.
But it's there was 671 total. It's a PX Puncheon
Punchin'.
Punchin. Thank you. And it's 57% on the dot.
And it's got dark chocolate notes with like a hint of coffee and a little bit of like grapefruit, like zested grapefruit
Yeah.
peel.
It's bordering on an espresso or a really dark coffee
Yeah.
bean type of thing.
Right, but the dark
But-
chocolate takes over more.
Yeah.
It's just a little
Mhm.
bit of that in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never be like chocolate and coffee and grapefruit. That goes
Gimme,
together.
gimme.
But
You
and
know.
it's just nice and warm. I love this.
And a nice little peppery finish
Mhm.
in there.
A little bit of pepper and
Love it.
spice on the
Absolutely
finish.
love it. And it's at the ABV.
Big fans.
It's got something that you guys can connect with. You're not reaching for what. I mean, I encourage you to pick up water the same as you would do with bourbons and play with water if you like and things and see how it switches
Sure.
up and changes it. But you're
We got the
no
whole thing.
you're no shrinking violets, right? You're happy just to wade in at 57%.
I
We're
am.
no shrinking violets. That's right.
Yeah. Terrific stuff. Well, let me ask you as you sip your Glenallachie, then I'm going to pour the second. I'll go for the. Will I go for the toasted oak or will I go for the Heaven Hill?
Is it toasted rye or is
Yeah,
it?
it's a toasted rye.
Yeah.
Before gate.
Yeah.
Let's go with the Heaven Hill first. Even though the proof might be it's going to be very powerful,
Remember, it's
Good.
toasted rye though.
but it's still a rye and it's still
Yeah.
also high proof. So I worry about
True.
Tell
the
you what I'll
rye
do then. I'll
ruining.
pour them
What I
alongside-
don't want is the William Heaven Hill to be ruined.
Right.
In the Isla glass, I'll
Yeah.
put the Heaven Hill in, and in the No Nonsense Whiskey hand glass, I'll put in the Toasted oak.
Ooh.
And I'm going to ask you, Brian Kilco is in tonight saying thanks for guiding me through Scotch and bourbon. So I think that's Brian thanking both of us. Good to see you in, buddy, and thanks for being a supporter for 39 months. Brian, you're a star, you're a superstar. And James DeJulio is in as well saying celebrating 40 minutes till Jimmy Legg hits you. Jimmy Legg's not going to be hitting anybody, but he is coming over in September. He'll be here at 30th of September. We're going to have a gathering in Glasgow, so I keep mentioning it, asking people to save the date. I forgot what I was going to say.
I'll
there.
happily clear my calendar.
Yeah.
Come back over, yeah. Well, now you know. I have a theory. Sarah, tell me what you think of this theory. If you're traveling, right, and if you're going to fly, I don't know, JetBlue or whatever your domestic airlines are in the US, you have to pack. You have to go through the hassle of waiting in the airport and doing all the kind of airport procedures. Then you have to get on the flight and you have to get off the flight and collect your bags at the other end. There is no difference between doing that domestically for a 2-3 hour domestic flight and a 5-hour flight across the Atlantic. It's only that extra time on the plane. And so what we're actually talking about is a nap. That's the difference. So
I
it's
like
not,
analogy.
There's this idea in a lot of kind of North American heads that a trip to Scotland is this bucket list once in a lifetime thing, and then the next thing you know, you've welcomed them here 5 times once they work out that it's actually not that. Okay, it's cost has got a lot to do with it, but
the plane ticket cost.
But like you're saying, logistically or like travel load wise, it's not much different than if you live in New York flying to LA. I mean, it's not that much different.
Yeah.
But I like if we're gonna go through all the trouble to go, across the Atlantic and pack the bags and go through customs on the way back and everything, I'm gonna stay for longer. And so it's kind of nice because like it gives you an excuse in your brain to be like, well, what else can we do while we're there? Versus if I was going somewhere domestically.
There's the first little nugget. Then, are you saying that potentially this last trip that you've just how many days was it? 7 days.
12.
12 days.
So the group trip was 7 days, but we were there a day and a half early, and then we stayed 3 days more.
Yeah.
So we left on.
Okay. So yes, you stayed to just have some downtime and some personal time and kind of relax a little bit. Okay, I get that. Would you the next trip? Would you consider more time then? I guess.
I feel like I would. Maybe you could do a
14.
couple more days, 2 weeks. Yeah. I think 2 weeks is a good time. Like 10 days to 2 weeks is a good amount of time. That sounds like a long time to be away from home. I was really worried about being gone for that long, but once we were there was so much to do and see that I feel like I would have happily. Normally I'm ready to go home at the end of a trip, and I was not ready to go home.
Yeah.
In fact, I was already making notes of like, okay, I'm going to call my trip coordinator when I get back, and we're going to plan Scotland 2.0 because I want to do Speyside in the Highlands.
Yes.
Whereas we just did Isla, this time.
I know the answer to this, even although I've not asked you it before, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would you change the cadence, the pace of the trip?
I'm
going to let you go first.
That's tough because I loved the trip completely. I had a blast. There were a few times where I wish we could have enjoyed the view longer. There was definitely a couple distilleries that we didn't have tours at. We just had stop-ins that would have been nice to have spent longer at the distilleries. So yes, but not completely because the trip itself was really great and it had a really great pace. But yeah, there were times where like I wish we could stay and just look out at the lock and enjoy a pour or something.
Yeah. I hear that, but then whatever we went to next, whatever we were shuffled along to was equally amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say for us, we got into Isla on, I don't remember what evening it was, but at an evening, we spent the whole next day kind of popping around to distilleries, and then we left the next morning. If you were to say stay for 2 weeks instead of 10 days or add an extra day or something, I would have stayed another day on Isla just to see more. Because I do feel like it would have been nice to have a little bit more time to see more stuff, but we still saw a lot. I mean, we stopped at 4 distilleries. Would have been 5, but the Bowmore was closed because it was Coronation Monday,
Of course, yeah.
recognized holiday, so they were closed. But we stopped in. We did tours at Bruichladdich and Ardbeg, and we stopped at Lafroig and Lagavulin. And
for quick
just
tastes.
like quick tastes, yeah.
The thing about the structured tour, it's perfect because you don't have anxiety. You're just lifted and you're laid again. You know exactly where you're going to go. You just follow. You can relax much more. It's fantastic for that reason. So many visitors to Scotland, whether it's a structured tour or them just coming on their own, make a similar, I won't say mistake, but they make a similar adjustment where they have to view that structured tour or that kind of quick in and out pace as being almost like sampling appetizers, touch, toe in the water type things, and an idea that you can then pick what you might want to return to and spend a bit more time around, like Chad said, just looking at the view, just marinating in the space a little bit, or just kind of being more present. And I've always found that can be an issue and I was the same. I'm not the same now, but when I was planning a trip, I wanted to squeeze in as many tours, as many distilleries,
as much as you can see.
Yeah, because you go to Ireland, you're like, oh wow, 9 distilleries on this tiny little island, and so you think I can just go to see them all. And of course,
I want to get my merit badge for visiting them all.
Yeah.
So what you need to understand is that probably if it is genuinely fun and you do enjoy it, it's not going to be your last time. It's not going to be your last time. I've had a dram come in from Whiskey and Wine Trails. That's Tom. Fantastic, Tom. Loving this collaboration. 3 genuinely likable people. They deserve their own emoji, Roy. There we go. There's only Roddy has claimed his own emoji so far. Thanks, Tom. Thanks very much, buddy. And I'm glad you're enjoying Chad and Sarah being here. We always love to have you here too. And Dan Thompson is saying they missed out not going to Bunnahabhain and doing the number 9 warehouse tasting. That's right. It's a famous tasting, but if you're going to you're going to have to come all the way to Scotland, then go all the way to Islay, and then if you're on Islay, to go all the way to Bunnahabhain, one of the most remote now distilleries on Islay. It is quite a trek to get there, but they do at that Warehouse 9 tasting. They reward you. They really, they really reward you. Yes, it's
make it worth
fabulous.
The trip.
It's fantastic. It's good fun. And Mark Goins is in saying, having a driver was the best investment that we made. We could go as fast or as slow as we wanted. That's interesting. Agenda-free driver. That's brilliant. That's usually my role these days, Mark. And Ian Bruce is saying folks are getting to enjoy the views for longer now due to the ferry delays. Did you have any ferry delays? Or were you okay?
We didn't. No, they were fine.
We had a ferry that was the waters were a little choppy.
It wasn't the ferry's fault.
No, it wasn't the ferry's fault. I didn't love that part, but everything else was great.
Yeah, the ferry off the island was great. It was
amazing.
It was warmer and it was clear sailing.
Yeah, we had great weather.
We did do the warehouse tasting at Bruichladdich.
That was incredible.
Which we enjoyed that quite a bit. You know, the straight from the barrel, Bruichladdich, Port Charlotte, and Octomore. Those, in fact, we got a little bit. The great thing about over there that we've said before on our live stream is the
driver pours
cater more towards the designated driver, and then also if you don't want to finish your pour, they give you a little sample thing. You pour it in there, which is what we did, so we could take it back here and drink it.
Or back in the accommodation
night
or whatever, or you can take it down to the beach or stop somewhere. You can do all of those things. More distilleries are getting better at doing that. I have to say, it's been a long time since I've been in a distillery where they didn't offer that. It's a good thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
I asked a question tonight before we went live on the poll, and I said, "What are you sipping?" And you won't be surprised to hear the results. Scotch 69%, Bourbon 7%. Other whiskey 4% and something else 19%.
Okay.
Now,
we beat
something
other
else
whiskey.
Other whiskey.
Wine, beer, water, whatever.
Well, it could be water because people in Australia or whatever, coffee in the morning, whatever it may be. But let's end that poll because I'm going to type out here another poll because you've given me some unicorns. Let's spend a second as I type this poll up. You can tell me are these unicorns? I feel like these are unicorns. And I'm just going to take what to drink.
Yes, I remember 2 of the 3. I can't remember.
I'll read out what they are. Okay, a 1989 Old Grandad.
114.
114. So that's
114 proof.
114 proof, right?
Yeah.
That must be Chad's handwriting. Maybe it is mine. I don't know.
Well,
I think you
it
wrote
looks like a
one.
spider's crawled across the label. So does
Okay, then it's Chad's handwriting.
Definitely mine.
Yeah, that's Chad's.
perfect.
Spiders
But it's
crawl
perfectly
across it.
legible. It's perfectly readable. And you're talking about you want to make a distinction here about where it's been distilled by the looks of things on the label.
Mm-hmm.
What does that
Yeah,
mean?
so this was National Distillers, which is a defunct and shuttered distillery now. They were purchased by Jim Beam in I want to say 86-ish. By 89, they were still using
Their
National
distillate.
Distillers distillate. I think the first OGD, Old Granddad, that used Jim Beam distillate was in 91,
I was gonna say
92,
early 90s, yeah.
somewhere around there. So not only is it unicorn because it's from the 80s, but also it's from a defunct distillery.
They
and
don't make that liquid anymore.
there was just something about National Distillers, especially at higher proof, that you may have heard people talk about Stitzel Weller, where Pappy Van Winkle was originally made, and people coveted that a lot. National Distillers is no slouch. In fact, I would probably, in most cases, pick National Distillers over Stitzel Weller.
Chad, those
just
are
based off
fighting
experience.
words to some
Come at me,
people.
come at me, bro.
I don't care. But yeah, I would consider that a dusty unicorn.
Dusty
I guess.
unicorn, yeah. Yeah.
Then there was
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Roy will
Well-
reveal the rest.
Well, I've put them all in now. I'm going to just what to drink. Why is it not letting me add the poll? Add option. I don't need to add an option. Yeah, I don't want to add a fourth option. I just want to ask the community.
Just do what I say.
Yeah, it's not
just
doing.
make the fourth option all of the above. No, because then everyone will pick that one.
That's insane. I've typed it all out, and it doesn't want. It's the ask your community is grayed out. Let's wait a minute and let's see if it decides to fix itself. We can do a refresh. So I was suspicious that these are bourbons. Tell me, are there people out there that are going to be bourbon fans that's going to be a wee bit kind of just nodding sagely, or perhaps even a wee bit jealous that these things can make it into these bottles and over here? I know that these are treats. These are proper treats. If I didn't do the poll, then let's not do the poll, because I think that the answer of the poll would probably come back all of the above, right? They're just all going to say, just drink them all the way.
Just drink them all.
What would you go first? You would probably go with the 1989 first.
Yes.
That'd be the most delicate.
Have you said the other two yet?
Sorry, I wrote them in the poll. So 1989 Old Grandad, as you point out, from National Distillery, 114 proof. Pappy Van Winkle Family Reserve. Now this is beautiful handwriting here.
Sarah,
that might be mine.
Sarah wrote that one, and then she got busy, and I had to do the rest.
Thank you for
that's
gifting me this. This is just an absolute treat, because you hear so much about Pappy Van Winkle. Just about, I mean, and I know that it's probably hard for the liquid to live up to the reputation almost now, right? Because it's just so famous.
Certainly.
And then I've got
What year was that?
It's a
this
20
is
year.
the 20 year.
Mm-hmm.
90.4
And the proof on that is
90.4.
You
Yeah.
might want to start with that one.
Yeah, maybe.
Ooh, okay. And then I've got the Booker's Rye, which is the 2016.
That's last.
That's last. Okay. Oh my,
Yeah.
68.1% That's the one I take to bed and don't brush my teeth, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So
meant to be
the-
shared.
Let's go with the Pappy Van Winkle, and I'll have a sip of that while I ask you guys another wee question. So you started off.
Tell us what to sip.
Oh yeah, are you dry? My goodness, I'm not keeping up with you guys.
We are.
We just poured small pours, so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
What do you have that's Isla then? Or you've got the Bruichladdich there, but it's unpeated.
We've got the Bruichladdich, the Dark Arts 5.1.
We have a sample.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That was from Dawn.
Well, I tell you what, let's build up to it. Pour a little of the
Okay.
classic laddie. Pour a little of the classic laddie. It's at 50% ABV, and it might just ease you in, because I've got a feeling that This is going to be completely bright and fresh, and you're going to be looking for the oiliness here. You're going to be looking for the malt and the barley, the cereal notes. On the back of that PX cask, it's going to be a complete contrast, completely different.
That's true.
You can definitely tell no color added on this guy.
Yeah, but I don't mind. I love the classic quality.
It's natural. It's absolutely natural. And Bruichladdich remain one of the most transparent distilleries out there, and they should be celebrated for it. Absolutely. So this is
just light and clean and crisp. Oh yes, we will be quiet so you can give your notes.
Now,
no, we let him give his notes.
Well, as he's marinating, what's that?
Elegant. Sorry, it's elegant.
No, not at all. To be an actual Pappy Van Winkle, it's the 15, the 20, and the 23. Some people will lump in the 10 and the 12 year. Those are actually just Van Winkle family reserves or whatever. Some people will say the 15 is the favorite because it's the highest proof. Some people will say the 23 because they think because it's the oldest, it's automatically the best.
Technically, there's a 25 year, so it's not the oldest.
Yeah, well, that's a Rip Van Winkle.
Sure. Same thing.
And then some people will say the 20 because it's in the middle. We have our preference, but we shan't voice that.
Oh, I was literally about to be like, I'm team this number.
No.
It's absolutely divine on the nose. It's
okay.
I know I'm sipping Pappy Van Winkle. I'm excited about it before I put my nose in it, so I'm going to be positive about it. You could argue, right? But it does live up to it. Everything is. There's lots of kind of detail here, but it's not spiky. Everything is kind of like, you're going to have to sit with this for a long time to pick out the individual things, I think. It's elegant.
Now, is this your
together? Sorry, go ahead, Chad.
Is this your first Pappy?
No, it's the first time I've had the 20. I've had the 15 and the 23, and I've tried the 10.
Oh. Well, bam. Good.
Serendipity.
Good on us.
It's very lucky, but I've only been able to try them in very, very small pours through festivals. So where you can buy them in typically 1 CL type pours and things. Or you're fortunate to be in a bar where they're still selling it at a reasonable price, right? And the last time I had a Pappy Van Winkle was pre-pandemic. I've not had it for a long, long time.
Well, we're happy that we could help you complete your vertical tastings, but please don't feel like you have to be kind to it or anything. I didn't make it. Yeah, happy to share it with you either way. Don't feel like sometimes I feel bad whenever people send us samples, like for sample shout outs, and I'm like, I don't like it. It's kind of rude. Like, here, I sent this to you. I hate it.
It's rubbish.
Why would you do this to me? Slap.
Yeah.
So the nose suggested that it was going to hide its ABV, but when you sip it, it's vibrant and it's still alive. Quite incredible for 20 years old, right? Still, what is the proof on this? 90, you said, so it's 45% ABV, but it's still communicative. It's vibrant. It's quite brittle. It's almost kind of dissolves. But delicate, elegant. There's a very kind of ever so slight sweet / savory thing, like almost like a roasted nut or something. It's so little in the bottle. There's potentially not enough of it for me to be able to. You understand, though? You want to. It's that kind of thing that it flashes and flickers and then disappears again. And based on that, these are kind of big, right, plump flavor bombs that I've sipped before. Delicious and communicative and loud. Whether this is whispering almost. This is kind of like just gently kind of bringing you into it and just elegant. This is the type of bourbon you could put down in front of anyone and redefine their idea of what bourbon can be. I think that's
I would ask you to compare it to your previous, which was the William Heaven Hill.
I was going to say, did you try that yet?
134.4. Yeah, I think he's already had that one. Obviously, a huge proof difference.
I mean, the William Heaven Hill is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
It doesn't nose high ABV though.
Or I thought did you pour that or did you pour the
I poured both.
rye? Okay.
But you haven't sipped them.
No, I poured the. Sorry, I sipped the rye. I think.
Okay.
No, maybe I didn't.
Just
Now that I know that.
curious. No pressure to do that yet. I think if you're going to enjoy the Pappy, it would be best done before you have either of those.
Agreed.
Because I think afterwards it might just taste like water.
Yeah.
Well, I think that yeah, ABV, age, everything, it makes it all a little bit more fragile, a little bit more delicate. But I can tell you right now that whatever I've had beforehand hasn't detracted too much because it's absolutely delicious. In fact,
That's good.
I'm going to put a little cover on the top and just sit it there. I can tell
I have to say,
I'll be up late
go
tonight
ahead.
sipping it.
I think that you responded much more favorably than we did. Although we were obviously super happy to have gotten one and to have tried it. For me, I think it's in this weird space where I feel like it's too oaky for me, but also not high enough proof for me. The 15-year is actually my favorite because it's not as much oak, so it's dialed back a little bit, but I get a little bit more proof, a little bit more texture. That's where I like it. And the 23 is just, I don't know. It's
good, but very oaky.
It's just, the 20 and the 23 are just too oaky for me personally. But everyone obviously
has a different oak
I
threshold.
think my opinion is of the minority because most people feel that the 20 and 23 are better. Is that because they like the oaky more? Is it because they just believe that older is better? I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's also
I'm happy to hear
a
it
way
appreciated.
that it communicates its age, and that's almost like in Scotch it would come across as a dunnage note, like damp. You know, the kind of earthen damp. There's just a sense of age. You know, old books and things like that. This is a little bit different. There is a wee bit of the kind of old book thing going on in here, but the sense of age here is a wood. It's a sandalwood type. It's almost like you're in a woody place and maybe leather chairs and things. That sense of being in some place with patina, well-worn surfaces, that kind of thing, that suggestion there. It's kind of funny how a spirit, a liquid, can convey a sense of age. I think it can only do that when you've sipped a lot. And I think that that's what you guys have done. You've sipped your way around the different Pappies, and you can have a your own subjective take on what your preference is, and also qualify it by being able to tell what the differences are. For me, I'm just basking in the idea that I've got a glass of Pappy in front of me and another glass still to pour a wee bit later on, and just enjoy it.
Thrilled.
Yeah,
I'm just thrilled that you can enjoy it. It makes me happy to see it shared. And it's like when you make dinner for somebody and everybody goes and the dinner table gets quiet and everyone's like, the food's really good. Yeah. When you're the one that cooked it, it just makes your heart feel full, even though I didn't make it.
Yeah, again, we didn't.
I didn't make it.
But we supplied it.
I wrote the label for the bottle.
Just being polite, right?
Yeah,
right,
nobody eats their potatoes. They're like pushing them to the side. I'm just kidding. That would never happen with potatoes. No. Probably some sort of green
beans.
Chad hates green beans. I don't understand.
So let's map. You've already mentioned you were in Edinburgh. You went to Oban. You've been to Islay. So how many distilleries? What was good?
Oban.
Just the town in general.
I think actually, you were talking earlier, you asked a question. Sorry to like derail you a little bit.
Go ahead.
But you asked before, did we feel like it was overscheduled or would we have wanted more activities? And I have to say, like, I thought the pace was pretty perfect. I mean, I think that we could fine tune and make it even more perfect, but I don't have any complaints. My favorite day was the day that we took the ferry from Islay to Oban. And that was literally the only thing on our agenda. So when we got to Oban mid-afternoon, the rest of the evening was open. And that was one of my favorite times because we climbed up. I made Chad hike up to McCaig Tower and we looked out and we had a pour. It was beautiful. Got to, see the boats coming in and everything. And then we went and had dinner. And then we went to the whiskey vaults and we hung out with all of our people. We didn't have anywhere to be. We just ordered whatever we felt like and hung out.
Yeah,
and
that was a good day.
There was no distillery visits that day. But we had a great time.
We know that Oban was going to be in the morning.
The Oban was the next morning.
That to look forward to. And it was also the weather just became incredible that day.
Gorgeous.
It was just gorgeous. Didn't need a jacket or anything. And we popped into a wee whiskey shop and got a lot of these samples.
A lot of these samples came from there. It was
yeah.
just like one of those like picture perfect days. Like if I could take that day and frame it,
Bottle it.
it would be perfect. But I think what you were asking was how many distilleries did we go to in all?
Mm-hmm.
This many.
So we started in Edinburgh. We went to the Johnny Walker Experience.
Yes.
Then on Isla, we did tour at Bruichladdich, quick stops at Lafroig and Lagavulin. Then
ended at
Ardbeg, and then Oban.
Yeah, so
six. We were supposed to go to Kilchoman between Bruichladdich and Ardbeg, but we had to cut that because instead of spending an hour at Bruichladdich, or an hour and a half at Bruichladdich for our tour and tasting, we spent 3 hours at Bruichladdich, which was fine.
It was fine.
Because again, I was personally thieving from the barrel for all 18 of our guests. Like we were just sitting around. Valenche, yeah. We call it a thief. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
It's a Valenche or a copper dog.
Copper dog.
Yeah. So just sitting around and listening to our guide, tell stories while we're drinking straight from the barrel, like not a bad reason to miss the next stop. So
it was just logistics.
It was like 20 minutes. This is why you need to flow. You need to let that thing happen where serendipity kicks in, and you just need to say, okay, we just need to make a slight change of plans work. You will be back again. You will make it out to Kilchoman. And when you go to Kilchoman, you'll take the drams from Kilchoman and you'll go a few hundred yards further beyond, and you will witness the most spectacular beach on one of the most spectacular beaches on the west coast of Scotland, where you've just got this really broad, wide slab of gold and white sand. And you stand on that beach, there's a shipwreck there that's buried in the sand. Depending on where the sand and the tide is, it will dictate how much of it you see. And you just look out west, and the next landfall that you have is Nova Scotia. You walk into the sea, you feel the pain, you feel the needles of the icy cold sea as you walk into it. It takes a while to adjust, and it's just you need to go back, and then you need to do that.
You really paint a picture.
Yeah, you'll come back, you'll throw a blanket down, you'll open your cask strength, whatever it is you've picked up from Kilchoman, and you'll sit on the beach and drink it, and you'll know contentment.
Take me there.
So Roy is
wait, is that Otter Beach?
Is that is that where you, when you were telling the story where you and your wife put down the blanket and had a drink? Exactly. Was that there?
And we asked the kids not to go in the water. And then, of course,
they did.
Of course, that's exactly what they do. But we were there. The family was there in October. It's pretty chilly in October. But their kids, they've got lots of brown fat. They didn't care. They're just in the water. And the three of them soaking wet. We had to strip them down and wrap them in blankets to get them back to the car. Jeez. They were still laughing. Just put the heated seats on. But just a brilliant time. And it's one of the only times that my wife actually enjoyed a glass of whiskey, and it was a glass of Kilchoman Loch Gorm. So, but just bliss. And if you ask my kids where they want to go on holiday, if we're going to go on holiday in the UK, where do you want to go? They will say Isla. They will say we want to go back to Isla, and that's nuts for my kids to say that, because it's Daddy's whiskey island, right? So it's incredible. Yeah, it really was. Hellswood is saying Machir Bay, such a beautiful place, 10 minutes walk from our holiday cottage. Helen, I bet you can almost taste it. Now, Helen's been a couple of times and she's looking forward to getting back again. Whiskey Straight Alice saying you could be a travel writer, Aquaviti. Cheers, Al. Good to see you.
He really could.
I was just thinking that. You should be subsidized from Travel Scotland.
Agreed. You absolutely should. That description alone, I'm like, transport me. Teleport me there right now.
Well, what is the role is whiskey evangelism, but also it ends up being embroiled into being an evangelist for the things that I've discovered. And I was discussing this recently. When you live in Scotland, you just live in Scotland, and that's just it. You just take so much of it for granted and things. And I've lived in the States. I lived in New York for a while. I lived in the south of England, and it gave me contrast and it gave me appreciation for the positive things in Scotland. Then when I got into whiskey, that was suddenly appreciation on steroids, because it made me go to places in Scotland that I've never been before. It made me dig deeper and look closer. And I really feel privileged to be here. And I also have the privilege of being able to talk to you guys on live streams, sure. But, on downtime, and all the visitors that come into the country and see my country through their eyes. And most of the time, I mean, it's not all brilliant. There are negatives, but most of the time it amplifies that sense of and that joy of being here and being able to live here and being able to have whiskey on the doorstep and things like that. So yeah, I'm an evangelist for my country now as well, and I'm glad to be. Chad and Sara are not in Scotland. Why? Well,
I wish I was.
I mean, that's right. I mean, there's an argument that if you were coming here under your own steam, we would do a live stream and you'd be in the room with me, right? But it doesn't really matter. The technology means that we can do it. And Luna saying,
next time.
Hello, Roy, and all you lovely barflies. Thank you both. Thanks, Luna. Thanks to Helen as well. So you managed to, you've done, your favourite part then was your trip from Islay to Oban. And was Oban the last? Was that the kind of where your tour ended?
Well, we traveled back to Edinburgh is where we ended it, and we had a farewell dinner in Edinburgh. But
then we went on over to like the Glasgow area. We saw Glencairn. We stopped by there, got a tour.
The glassmaker.
Maybe shot a little. Yeah, maybe shot a little video. Yep. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Then from there, we went to Fort William, and we drove through Glencoe, which was absolutely incredible. And we saw the wee white house. Chad was like, I don't get it. It's just a little white. Like, what is it supposed to be? I'm like, it's the wee white house.
Oh.
I don't even know what the wee white house is. What is the wee white house?
Oh, it's just a wee white house.
It's a wee white house.
It's a tiny little cottage that's white, but it's amongst these giant mountains, and it's just really picturesque.
It's really close to where Hogwarts would be if Hogwarts
was a real place. Yeah. I think there is actually a place where they filmed for Hagrid's hut that's like nearby there.
Yeah.
For Harry Potter, but it's 30
my
minutes.
son is the Harry Potter expert. So did you stop? Were you driving? Did you stop in Glencoe when you were driving through it?
We had a chauffeur.
One of our patrons was staying a few extra days, and we were telling him about our plans, and he was like, well, I'm staying and I'm going up that way too, and I've rented a car. Do you want to just come with? And I was like, well,
absolutely, because I can't.
I don't want to drive.
The driving on the wrong side of the road thing. Yeah, I just can't get that down.
So he drove us, but we repaid him in dinners and whiskeys. So for his services.
Yes.
So we stayed in Fort William, and then we did the Jacobite steam train out of Fort William the next day. Went to the Glenfinnan Viaduct. Then the day after that, we went to Inverness, and that was kind of our relaxed day. We just did whatever we wanted. We had afternoon tea, which was
high tea, amazing.
I'm just gonna start making tea at 2:00 every day here, and just get out all the cookies. Like,
cookies and
went
cakes
to an enormous bookstore.
Yeah,
I'd like someone to bring me cookies, cakes, and little sandwiches every day at 2:00. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So what I'm picking up from you is something that I try hard to recommend to people. What I'm picking up, we come here for the whiskey. We come here to maybe even visit the distilleries, and we love the whiskey and we love the distilleries. The real magic is in the tertiary things, the things around it, right? The little shops and cafes, the views, the sudden changes of the switching up of the weather. It's all the other things, and if you cram your itinerary too full, I think that if you're in the hands of a professional tour company, a tour guide, they know to put these things in. But if you fill your itinerary too full of whiskey, I would suggest you would maybe starve yourself from some of the magic that helps you understand whiskey more. Am I being a bit whimsical?
No, not at all. If it's too jam-packed, it almost becomes a chore. Like, well, we've got to rush from here to the next spot because we've booked a tour, and then we can't waste any time hanging around at the gift shop afterwards because we have to make it to the next place for the next tour. And you check a lot off on your list, but really you're sacrificing those moments in between for the accomplishment factor.
I think you captured it perfectly. Like it's like coloring in a picture or something, the whiskey stops or whatever, they're the reason that you started. That's the outline, but like everything else is what gives it color, what colors it in. And I think something to keep in mind too is you don't have to do a tour at every single place that you want to visit. it's kind of like over here when people come to Kentucky, they're like, well, I've booked tours at these 6 places over the week. And I'm like, a lot of them, you're going to see a lot of the same things. You're going to hear a lot of the
You're
same
going to learn
things.
how to make whiskey six
6
times over.
You're going to learn how they make whiskey, which is almost identical to how everyone else makes whiskey. What I think is more interesting is if you can book a hands-on experience, or if not that, just go to the tasting bar, go check out the gift shop and ask someone while you're there, stay, enjoy a cocktail, enjoy a pour, and learn from the bartender what makes them different. And you're going to be able to spend time there, but maybe shove in a couple of those stops instead of just tour, where you're going to need an hour and a half to 2 hours for each stop. You could spend 45 minutes and still experience the grounds,
possibly more out of it,
right? And I think that that's a good if you're going to do that, you're going to need a driver, but
either close by accommodation or a driver. Absolutely Especially in Scotland, because the tolerance for drink driving in Scotland means that you just don't touch whiskey or any booze and drive. It's so low that it's dangerous. It really is. I was about to say, I once heard a wise man say to us, come for the whiskey initially, but it's the people at the island that will bring you back. I can't for the life of me think who that was. Probably my words, Helen, right? Ian Bruce is saying, how about selecting a city and a region to then break the trip into more manageable chunks? It's very wise to do that. Find a hard point, find a central space that you can go to. And if you decide it's going to be a whiskey day, take the whiskey trips, but build in breaks between. And as Chad and Sara are saying, that doesn't mean that if you wake up that day you've got nothing booked, it can't be a whiskey day. You can go along and just let serendipity play a hand, see what tours that they have. Maybe it's a premium chocolate tour, a chocolate and whiskey pairing, or a warehouse experience, or whatever it is. Or maybe they don't have anything and you just hang about for a bit and pick up a couple of bar pours and a souvenir and say, well, I'll come back again. It's just so much about that, and manageable chunks. Ian, you've hit the nail on the head. Try and keep it manageable so that you can squeeze in your high teas and your nice dinners. And things like that.
You need the high teas.
You need the high teas.
Yeah.
I've been sipping these two. Sorry, Sara. I've been sipping these two bourbons, this Foregate and this William Heaven Hill. These are big, loud, shouty, full, all senses required. Kind of, it kind of brings you back in and say, okay, sorry, that other thing you were sipping there, that's bourbon. This is bourbon. It's just this big. It's the kind of
letters are
capital letters. Yeah,
that's right. And it's if I go back and forth between the two, I still feel that on the nose, it's just me tonight, but the ABV is hidden inside the liquid really well. I think high ABV Scotch is much more expressive. Maybe try pouring your Black Arts, the 5.1. Have you got that out yet? No.
Will do. No, we were just enjoying some of this. Another single cask. We went to Lockfine Whiskies in Inverary, and we got there Glen Scotia. We just,
just thirsty.
I don't know. We've been doing really tiny pours, so I just I'd rather taste more things.
So that's a Campbelltown whiskey you've got there.
It is a Campbelltown.
Yeah.
We really like it. I've been kind of taking an approach to whiskey lately, the way that I like to dine out, which is if I'm with a group of people, me personally, you always have to make sure that the whole group is on board for this. But I would rather us get a bunch of plates and all have a little taste of each thing until everyone's satisfied, versus getting my own giant entree and trying to finish it, which I won't. And I'm stuck with that. And I feel the same way about whiskey. I would rather pour myself little pours of all of these things and taste them all than one large pour of any one of them.
Sure.
I might go back to it and have more later, but I just love that little, it's almost like the tapas approach to whiskey.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Tapas is perfect approach. And even if you were to, some people will suggest to you that if in whiskey, if you have 8 or 10 tiny little pours, then your palate's exhausted and confused and all over. But it doesn't always have to be an analysis. You're just enjoying it and you're seeing how it flashes and contrasts, right? So absolutely, Sara, we're on the same page when it comes to that food. It's nice to just sit down and order food and enjoy your food. But if everybody's on board and everybody's just I love going into restaurants and just saying, bring us food. Just
bring us food.
Just bring us food. We're hungry. We can eat anything.
Guide me.
Yeah. Just
Tell the
just
chef to make something that they want to make and bring
Mhm.
it to us, please.
Yeah.
That way you get to explore and you get to experience more things, and it starts a conversation. I liked this dish. Did you
Mhm.
like that dish? Which one was your favorite? That's just my favorite way to eat.
Has whiskey taught you to be a little bit more like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. For me
A little bit
personally.
more
It definitely taught me to be
sensory
more
and tune and
community oriented or group oriented and adventurous, I guess, in that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's never going to be a whiskey that I would not try. I would never be like, oh, that's from the description. It sounds like it's something I wouldn't like. I'm not going to try that whiskey. I'll try any whiskey always. So, sometimes you kind of have to think, well, I should be like that with food. I should be like that, with other things. So that's sort of my approach now. Like any food, I will try it once. I might not like it and try it again, but I will try any food.
And I kind of feel that way with like experiences in travel too. It kind of
Yeah.
translates there to a degree. I still know that I don't love standing in the direct sunlight for hours on end in lines with lots of little kids running around and screaming where, waters cost $8 a bottle. So I know the Disney World is probably not for me. But I might try Epcot sometime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. I know a
I'll
fella
still
that
use
runs
my logic.
I know a fella that runs a spirits bar at Epcot. So if you do head down there, it would be one I would send you to. Listen,
Nice.
I think I agree with you completely. You try it, you do it, and you work out that okay, that was fine. I could see some of the positives in it, but it's not for me. But I think whiskey is a good way of teaching you to be a wee bit more open-minded, to slow down a little bit, to be a bit more present, a bit more mindful about everything that you enjoy, whether it's food, whether it's other drinks, whether it's environments or places or whatever. And I know that if the 30-year-old me or the 20-year-old me had have heard what I've just said, I would have thought I was ridiculous, right? But it's true, because whiskey's taught you to be a little bit more present, a bit more mindful. Jason Newman's bought us a dram to say it was great hanging out with you and Clydeside SMWS. Thank you, Chad and Sarah, for a trip of a lifetime. So there you go, Jason Newman. You went down to Clydeside. And he's bought us a very generous dram. Thank you very much, Jason. And Graham Young is saying, a pause and praise for the Black Heart. Still remember what I was wearing as I sipped the Black Heart 5.1. Was a wee epiphany for me. Enjoy, Chad and Sarah from Graham Young in Canada. Thanks for the dram.
Yeah,
Graham.
tell us.
Thanks, Jason.
I've been sipping it. I'm a fan.
Tell us about this. What can you tell us about this Black Arts? I know it's 25 years old, I believe, but that's about all I know.
Well, I've only tried. I haven't tried the 5.1. So you're trying something that I have not tried. It's not easily affordable whiskey. It's very, very.
It's not.
Oh, that's a nice reaction. There we go. There we go.
In the gift shop, I gravitated towards the bottle design. I was like, ooh, I want this one. And then I looked at the price and I was like, ooh, maybe not. I said, I went over to the tasting bar and I was like, do you have that on the bar? Could I try it before I buy it? And they were like, yeah, we don't have anything that's over X amount of dollars on the tasting bar. I was like, fair enough.
So
but
Black
I think
Heart,
that's kind of backwards logic.
Is really for somebody to, when people are vatting and putting together a Scotch whiskey for whatever reason.
3 years.
Okay. It's often not disclosed what goes in. But Black Hearts takes that to a whole extreme. There's no chance of any kind of transparency. People it's really a free hand for the master blender. I think 5.1 was Adam Hannett that put that one together. Not sure. I think it's Adam's work. And he's got free reign to make whatever he wants to make and put together whatever he wants to do and not need to disclose it to anyone. Nobody's ever going to know. They're just asked to approach the whiskey based purely on its flavor profile. For me, it's always been the Black Hearts that I've tried, one of the, if not the richest Islay whiskey in existence.
It's very rich.
Wow.
Yeah. I
think we should have gotten a bottle.
I know, right? Now I regret that we didn't get a bottle. I'm sure we could still finagle that. We'll have to go back. We'll just go back. It has this like toffee, Luxardo cherry. Like I can't. Yeah. Every time I think I have it pinned
it's a
down,
little toasty.
Right? It changes. It's like, oh wait, no, it's this. No, it's that. I don't know. I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole with flavors.
But that's hopefully what Scotch can do to you. I hope. And I think that I need to spend more time with bourbon, because I think bourbon will help me be much more detailed in my definitions. Where Scotch makes it easy for you. Two Scotches taste really quite different. Two bourbons taste close together, often to a Scotch drinker's perspective. That you need to work a wee bit harder. It's more challenging to tease out the differences between the two. So if I'm going to bourbon, I would tend to be much more broad brush with my tasting notes. And I think that what you need with that black art is just to sit in a quiet space for a wee while, Sarah. And
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there's almost like an effervescence in the
There's
middle
something
there,
else in there.
and
Yeah,
there's a savory note, like the meat cooked on the stone last night that we had. It's sort of like
it almost has like a savory, like
flavor.
almost an umami.
Yeah.
umami,
like
yeah.
not soy sauce, but umami. Yeah.
This may be the best Scotch I've ever drank.
I think it's pretty great.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do like what you said before, though, about how drinking whiskey makes you more mindful, because I think that's the opposite of what people would think. I think that they would think, well, the more you drink, you can't be mindful. And also, the more you analyze something, you're not actually in the moment. But I think you cross a threshold when you practice it enough where it becomes second nature to be very, like you said, present in your body or in the moment of what am I experiencing? What does this remind me of? What memories does this bring up? And I think, like you said, it translates.
Why is it making me
other
feel
parts
like
of your life?
Why
do I feel this way?
What's happened?
Yeah. But I really do think it translates to, like you said, to other things, other experiences when you're with another person, having a really good conversation. Like your mind is in the background and breaking it down. Why is this so good? Why is this meal so good? This experience, you know? I love that further. A lot.
I'll also talk about when people hear that you're sipping something at 67.2% ABV, they think that you are an addict. They think that you are looking for the next hit of high ABV. But what they don't understand is that you cannot abuse something at 67.2% ABV. It forces you to slow down. You need
you wouldn't have a throat left.
Yeah. You have to pump the brakes and take a minute.
Is catching your attention and shouting for your attention every time. And once people understand that concept, and actually sipping whiskey can actually help you slow down your alcohol consumption, that's quite an epiphany moment. I think it's an epiphany for a lot of people. I think I'm going to ask I'm going to ask one more thing before I go into these two delicate old unicorns. I'm going to just ask, I know already what the answer is, Chad, whether you like it or not. I think you're going to be back in Scotland. The answer is that probably you're going to be traveling back at some point in the future. I think if you do, I would encourage you to maybe visit a couple of English distilleries too, a couple of Irish distilleries, just kind of you're fairly local here. It's, the whole British Isles is not much bigger than Kentucky after all, right? It's maybe a little bit bigger, but not much, I don't think. And just kind of, try to push things just a wee bit further, and also understand why things taste smoky. Well, because it was the only fuel source that they had, so they had to dry the barley with peat, and that ended up giving it's just crazy to think that that's why the flavor is the flavor. Much the way that bourbon tastes the way it does is because, well, the Coopers brokered a deal in the pre-war, and bourbon ended up with a flavor profile. These are all kind of super interesting concepts. The more you spend time, the more you start to understand about how it's about the place, wherever it is in the British Isles. In fact, I'm going to ask then, if you come again, would whiskey be the catalyst, or would the country be the catalyst? Would the motivation for you coming again?
I have an answer.
I think whiskey is always the excuse,
Perfect
quote unquote.
Excuse.
Yeah. But when you add up the percentage, whiskey is a lower percentage of the total trip spent, and the countryside, the castles, the food,
the community,
the fellowship of the ring. It's sort of outweighs the whiskey, but the whiskey is the glue that kind of ties it all together. It wraps it all up in a nice bow.
The reason, but everything else is equally as important, especially from like from a work standpoint. Yes, it's the whiskey. From a personal standpoint, I will enjoy the whiskey parts a lot, but I will enjoy everything else as much.
Well, it's sort of like the people that we went with. The common denominator was whiskey and Patreon.
That's what brought us together.
But at the end of the day, it's all just good people that become or have already become friends. And then it's just the human element at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But whiskey was that catalyst, as you said, that got it all started.
I love it. I love it. It's time and time again. It's the excuse, the event, the festival, the trip, the tour, the tasting, the gathering, the meeting, whatever it is brings us together. And then as we're there, it just fades into the background and just lets us see each other for the people that we are. It's a treat. And I know that I'm an evangelist and I'm here to try and speak positively about whiskey and everything that it's brought me and the community's brought me. But I am continually reminded by the people in that very same community that they feel the same thing. We are co-creators, right? You talked about it being almost like your job there, Sarah. You know, it's just the way, you know, I've managed to get together and meet in Texas 2 or 3 times now, and the channels get together as well, and we all are energized by this. It's not whiskey that gives us the energy, it's the people that come to whiskey's side. And I think it does exist in every place that whiskey is enjoyed, whiskey is made, absolutely. I hope that in time you come back in order to work out, I think maybe you've already got a good idea what makes Scotch whiskey that bit different and unique. And maybe you'll get to visit Irish whiskey in the future, and you already have a good anchor there, obviously, in Kentucky. And of course, I have an invite, I know I do. I have to make the effort to go and touch the ground in Kentucky so that it gives me.
You're always welcome.
That was going to be my my question was, you know, when are you gonna?
Well, see, then 3 years from now we can do this again, except for we'll be breaking down your trip to Bourbon Country.
Yeah, and we'll send you with
I have a 3-year window in order to have made the pilgrimage to Kentucky. Should that be a pledge? I also have a friend.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yes. Pledge it now, Roy.
Oh, don't let him pressure you.
Well, I have friends, a dear friend to us, Maria. She lived with us for over a year. She married an American and ended up living in Kentucky. So Jeremy and Maria are out there with a family in Kentucky now, and they've invited us over. You guys are inviting us over as well. So whether it's a whiskey trip or something else, what I'll say is you've already experienced. Can't it be both, right? So
that's right.
I would love to go to Turkey. Lammy's Drams has bought me a dram to say, Roy, have you discussed Campbelltown whiskey? We didn't even touch it, and you guys have sipped a Glen Scotia there from Campbelltown, and you've also got a single cask. Was it a single cask or was it a double cask that you sipped?
Yeah, the Loch Fyne.
It was their pick. I mean, their single cask. Yeah.
It's a 6-year. Yeah.
This was the first one that we. Oh, go ahead.
We'll raise a glass to everybody that's down enjoying the Campbelltown Whiskey Festival this week right now. I'm super jealous to be getting all these photographs sent up to me of all these people having fantastic times. All these tastings being hosted by all these kind of celebrity whiskey makers and whiskey folk. And it's difficult to be sitting here at home, but we can't make all the whiskey festivals all the time.
No.
Everybody down in Campbelltown, have a blast for us and take that celebration across the water to Isla afterwards too. Slàinte cheers.
Slàinte.
I raised a 1989-year-old old granddad, and then I sipped a Booker's Rye 2016 LE right on the back of me, saying it's difficult for me to detect the difference in bourbon flavors. And then I sipped these two, and I think, oh, shut up, Roy, what are you talking about? They're not even the same drink. They're incredible, and it's what's interesting is to sip them backwards and forwards. Is it's almost like that Pappy Van Winkle, that sense of age that it gave me. That old granddad now is now giving me a proper old molasses style, rich, comforting, warm feeling of I don't know, thick, gloopy amber age. And then the Booker's Rye is bringing it in this kind of this vibrance, this kind of, it's almost like the sharpness has been dialed up a little bit. And okay, it's still elegant. I think it's still a good age. I think it's 2016. Is that the year of release? I guess
That was the
Yes.
year of release, but it was a 13 year, if I remember correctly.
I
Because
think
it
that's
says
right, but
13
I
years
can't
old.
remember.
13 years, 1 month, and 12 days. You're very specific.
There you go. Yes, they do that on the Bookers.
But again, so
They haven't
so-
released another one.
Yeah.
Well, there was a Booker's bourbon gifted to me by Tom. I don't know if Tom's in here tonight. Tom's up in Alaska, but Tom Elmer gifted me it when we were over in Texas. But I've taken it off to auction. It's been auctioned right now for a charity. We were too late to donate the bottle for the charity, so I decided to put it in the auction, and whatever it raises, we will we'll donate to the charity, of course. But now that I'm sipping this, I know it's probably a very different example, but I'm like, damn, I should have kept that bottle of bourbon. I should have just put that Booker's the money for the Bookers into the charity and just enjoyed it. And kept it.
Depends on the
Absolutely
release.
not.
Yeah, but if it makes you feel any better, that Booker's Rye is pretty exceptional, and it kind of stands apart
Yeah.
from other Booker's releases.
I mean, yeah, one Booker's is always bourbon, except that one
rye.
release, and they're typically 6, 7 year old, where this one was 13. I mean, it's they'll do their anniversary releases.
8.1%, and I could drink
Yeah.
it neat all night long easily,
Isn't it
Mhm.
so good?
Mhm.
and just kind of lick it off the inside of my teeth and just absolutely. But it is.
That's why we want to share it with you.
Well, that's also how I feel about Booker's Rye. Is I
Yeah,
could lick
yeah.
it off the inside of my teeth or your
Yeah.
teeth, anybody's teeth. No, I'm just kidding.
The ability to be
Sorry,
able to
it's not
try
original.
these unicorns, I know the privilege, I know the treat that I have. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Loy Pinheiro is here saying, I have to say the highlight of my team at Campbelltown earlier this month was Cadenhead's warehouse tasting. I don't think I've ever had a more intriguing and diverse lineup. Guys, if you come back to Scotland, you do need to go to the tiny little town at the end of the Kintyre Peninsula that is Campbelltown. That is a region in its own right. It's a ridiculously fascinating history about whiskey production and the wax and wane of whiskey over its years. But it remains down there. There are 3 distilleries there now, but I think if you wait 3 years, there'll be 4 or 5. If you wait 6 or 7 years, there'll be 7 or 8, or goodness knows. It's just the vibrance, the life around it right now, and the festival. I'm very jealous that I'm not there this week. But anyway, what I am doing instead,
Scotland 3.0.
Mm-hmm.
has been mindful of the fact that Sarah has a trip to pack for tomorrow. I will try and tempt you with the quiz at the end, but with
I can't turn down a quiz.
oh my goodness. Well, I have to. Let me tell you this: the quiz is tough because it's easy to make a tough quiz, right? The hard thing is to make a quiz that's fair. But we do try and do that. So the quiz starts off easy, very easy. It starts to get trickier and trickier. The last time, if I just from memory, I think I was kind to you and did a kind of it's bourbon night, bourbon focused maybe quiz. This night, no. This is a pure vPub quiz at the end. All the culture of it, all the dynamics are in there. This is a tough quiz, Sarah. But what I'll say to you is this: normally, because it's multiple choice. Normally, 3 to 4 out of 10 is what you would expect if you were just guessing and throwing darts at it, right? But I think with a wee bit of kind of insight, a wee bit of thought, you've got a chance of getting more. Normally, the pass mark is 5 out of 10. However, tonight we will make the pass mark your score, Sarah. Whatever you score is the pass mark. Now, this is a cool dynamic because if you do very, very well, it makes it harder for people to pass tonight. But if you end up
you're the curve killer.
If you don't do so well and you end up with a poor score, you're very popular with the people still in the lounge participating at the end. So
now, is this a cumulative thing? Are we acting as one participant?
No.
The choice is yours. I would strongly recommend that what we normally do in the quiz, and I've got some of these I usually have around, is that and I appreciate you've not made these up, but we have A, B's, and C's on little pieces, so you could just do that, or you could make the shape with your hands. I don't know how we make a B. A, B.
You do 1, 2, or 3 for that's 4 for
Sure.
ABC.
So A, B,
or I can write it.
Yeah, that might be.
Yeah, we'll do easier. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3.
Well, I like this because this means that there's a
Or
bit of a
3.
competitive edge right at the end that will keep the interest going, and you can also compete with the folk in the lounge. But know this, the people in the lounge teach me about whiskey. The knowledge and the community, as you know from your community, is ridiculous,
Oh
right?
yeah, we
Yeah.
get
Incredible.
taught all the
All
time.
the time.
And
That's
but
why we
that's
never
one,
say
one
we're
of the cool things
experts.
is that it's not a download; it's a bi-directional
Mm.
relationship that you have. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I don't want to
Brian
be
saying-
an expert preaching at them. I want to constantly learn, sponge.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Be part of a community, right?
Mm.
Kilco, Brian is saying, Roy, don't miss my super chat or you'll feel bad later. Brian, I did miss your super chat, but I won't. I will go back and I will catch it, buddy. Here it is, a special Barfly Loch Lomond 10-year and a wheat science bourbon for me tonight. So he's bought my 10-year-old. You would call it a barrel pick, right? And a wheat science bourbon for me tonight. Cheers to you three magnificent bastards. Cheers to you, you magnificent
Cheers.
That's our
bastards.
pick,
Brian.
yeah.
Cheers, buddy. Cheers.
Nice.
And you'll need to
Beautiful.
remind me of this, but the next time that we're getting together, I'll let you taste that. I'll make my excuses for the reason I never brought you samples. For the community, I've already given you them. But it was the day I was meeting up with you that was my birthday and the coronation
It's
on
your
the same
birthday.
day. Yeah. And I knew that I was meeting you at night and I kept the night free, but the day stretched and stretched and stretched. And I suddenly became panicky. My wife said, no, I'll drive you there. Don't worry. But of course, it ended up. And by the time I rushed out the door and made it to meet you in Edinburgh, I turned up without any gifts whatsoever. And then you handed
Well,
me-
You are the gift.
It was
You're the gift.
your birthday. You're the one who drove an hour
To meet us.
So
At our request.
there was not even a inkling that we were going to get gifts from you. We were the ones who were giving the gifts.
To be fair,
So,
you also surprised us with a pour at the bar. So
you did.
that is also a gift.
Mhm.
that was the guilt. That was the guilt. Absolutely.
That was
That's
the guilt.
Well, see, we got something from it.
Yeah.
And that was the
No, your
it was
presence
an
was
an
present enough.
SMWS Macallan, wasn't it? I think we sipped a Macallan, which was only bang average from memory. And you
I
did
thought it was good.
SMWS. Rick Johnson is saying absolutely, and you sat me in a very nice table. Obviously, you were at the table as well, Chad. But the folks I was at the table, and I just
The
got a
best
nice
table.
vibe from everybody in the room. Actually, they were up for it. They were open, and yeah, thank you for putting me in the
absolutely.
spot and saying, Roy, stand up and chat for a bit. And I was like, aye, okay.
Yeah,
Let's do what I can. And,
Mhm.
it was
thanks a
good
lot,
fun.
Chad.
Yeah,
Roy loves it.
Wait,
He loves
Yeah,
to
I did love
evangelize.
it.
he does. We had to give you your platform.
Yeah,
Real quick, I was gonna open this. How do you say it? Tobermory?
Tobermory.
perfect. Absolutely perfect.
What does this have any color or anything added?
Is
It's
that the
Tobermory
12-year-old?
12.
Tobermory 12?
12.
No, it's fully natural. 46.3% ABV, unchill filtered, natural colour, owned by Currently Distill. They own Bunnahabhain and Deanston too. They also produce Lechic from the
Bunnahabhain.
Tobermory distillery. All natural, fabulous, fabulous stuff.
I'll just
Please
take some
keep
beers.
it up, Distill.
'Cause I got
Or
Okay.
CVH.
Because basically, from now on, I'm gonna ask before I open a pour, is this gonna make me mad? And that's gonna
Oh.
mean, are there colors, flavors, anything added that I
Yeah.
don't want added or taken away that I don't want taken away? Is this
Right.
gonna make me mad?
I also, if I could I ask one quick question before we get to the quiz?
I guess.
Please.
I don't know. It's not my show.
I'll try to make it. I'll try to make it quick. So, as I'm, learning and developing favorites and so forth, I feel like I am leaning towards Glenallachie as far as a distillery. Not knowing anything about them and their pedigree, would Scotch drinkers be like, that's a newer distillery in the grand scheme of things? No one's really a Glenallachie fan, or like what would
the public opinion
What would
be?
the public opinion of Scotch drinkers be about Glenallachie?
I can't speak for the public. I will speak for me if that helps. And I think it does. There is some kind of alignment with a lot of people in the community. Glenallachie was a product that, like much of the Scotch whisky landscape, existed purely to contribute towards blends. So Johnny Walker, Dewar's, whatever it is, they need malt to flavour that whisky, and Glenallachie existed for that purpose. Then in 2017, along comes a whiskey journeyman and a much, much celebrated whiskey maker called Billy Walker. And he buys Glenallachie on the back of huge success at Glendronach, a Benriach and Glenglassaugh. On the back of that success and his entire career of whiskey success, by the way, he buys Glenallachie and he inherits deep stocks of Glenallachie spirit. But that spirit has been made to just be malt, made efficiently to go into blends. He has to then take that malt and create something that is much more interesting for enthusiasts. And all the while, change the regime, the production regime at Glenallachie to make the malt that he actually wants to make flavor first. Screw efficiency and yield. Let's just go for flavor. Let's increase fermentation. Let's play with yeast varieties. Let's change the distillation regime, all of these things. And that's what he's done. But it's going to take years for that to bleed through and for us to taste that spirit. In the meantime, what you are drinking in the glass right now is the hand he's had and his team has had on changing the inherited spirit. So ergo, that means that it's a cask story. And that makes perfect sense why you love it, Chad, because bourbon is very cask forward too. It takes a potent, powerful spirit to break through a virgin oak cask, right? So, you know, a lot of the flavors in Glenallachie come from PX casks, Oloroso casks, wine casks, active American oak bourbon or virgin casks. A lot of the flavors in Glenallachie are that, and they have done a fantastic, amazing job of taking pretty benign spirit and making it vibrant and wonderful. And the people out there that are kind of negative towards it, you know, and I do talk about it being a cask story, I do say these things, but I don't want it always to be a negative thing. They forget how flavorful and how delicious it can be. I think what's going to be amazing is to see Glenallachie in 5 years' time when we've got Billy Walker's spirit and maybe less active casks, as well as still those active casks with a much more vocal spirit in the mix as well. That's what Glenallachie is today. It is widely celebrated by geeks. People love it. People love that there's a distillery available to them that was previously isolated from them. We couldn't buy Glenallachie until recent years. It was always reserved for blends. Okay. That was quite
I was trying
in wordy response. I apologize.
No, I love it.
No, I was trying to like compare it to what its equivalent in a bourbon distillery would be. And I think after now hearing that story, I would probably say it's like when Four Roses was sold to a foreign entity and was sort of floored. It was taken down and made it sort of bottom shelf. And then when it kind of made its return to glory, that's what, when you were telling that story, you sort of reminded me of when Four Roses returned to glory. So I would probably say what's sort of like a Four Roses story.
I also have a quick question. And I don't necessarily need a detailed answer. It's more for my own exploratory purposes. I hate when people ask us this question, but I'll ask it in a way that might be easier. What distillery, or maybe top 2 to 3, that's your favorite?
It's a lazy answer and it's an easy answer. I find that it's owned by a company that frustrates the living daylights out of me, often run by people who don't really understand whiskey, but it's littered with people who really love whiskey, really talented people who really love whiskey, and the distilleries under the ownership of the parent company, which is Diageo. You know, it can frustrate whiskey enthusiasts at times, but the fact remains that they own distilleries that are able to produce liquid that's pure gold. And when you get a very good example of something from Clynelish, it's if there's only one whiskey that you can have to take away for the rest of your mortal years on this wee world, it would be something like that perfect Clynelish thing. So it's ever so slightly funky, odd. There's a slightly kind of country note in there, but the overpowering flavor that you take away from a Clynelish would be a fruity barley sugar, waxy, oily, just ridiculous. You know when you sip it that it's a very indulgent and a very privileged thing. It's the type of whiskey that you sip and realize what a privilege it is just to be alive. I
have got to come up with that kind of answer when people ask me what my favorite distillery is.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's currently in the hands of Diageo, and for everything that they put out that's resplendent, they put out something that's really clumsy, and it's super frustrating, right? It's super frustrating.
Sure.
Yeah.
Doug Chrysopas bought me a dram to say I left work early to catch this vPub. I'm enjoying it so much, Roy. Thanks, Roy, Chad,
Aw.
and Sarah. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for being here, buddy.
Thanks,
And
Doug.
thanks for the generous drama, friend. I love his smiley face as well. Drew Bills is in. Drew Bills from Scotch for Dummies up there in Indianapolis. What is this? Chad and Sarah drinking Scotch. Yes. Cheers to everyone. Cheers to you, Bill. Thanks for dropping in.
Cheers.
I'm drinking bourbon, big guy, and I have to be honest with you. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. Bill, if you're feeling, Drew, Drew, if you're feeling confident and if you're courageous tonight, stay for the quiz, big guy. It might be a tough one. I warn everybody, this might be a wee bit tricky tonight, but remember, this pass mark is not 5 tonight. The pass mark is whatever Sarah scores. Good luck, guys.
I'm ready.
What am I?
Bring
Chopped
this
liver?
in.
Yes.
Let's try this new layout
Remember our
thing and
scoring?
make it a bit easier for us. Okay. This, a little bit of a nod to the fact that I'm sitting here with you guys from the States, but also a little bit of a nod to last weekend. We had International World Whiskey Day. So this is not a Scotch whiskey quiz. This is World Whiskey Edition. Yeah, that includes America, but includes every other nation out there that's making whiskey. This is not going to be easy. So I wish you the best of luck, guys. Are you competing against each other or supporting each other?
We're competing. Always, Roy. Always competing.
Fabulous. Fantastic. Okay, good luck.
Good luck to you, ma'am.
Aurora Spirit is a Norwegian distillery, but it can lay claim to what Aurora Spirit is either A, it makes Asgard single malt. I don't know if there's anyone that's fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but yeah. Or is it B, they are the world's most northern distillery? Or is it C, they make not just whiskey, but also gin, vodka, and aquavit inside the Arctic Circle? Which of those three things can Aurora Spirits lay claim to?
Right.
Now you're sitting here thinking, oh, this is really hard. This is really tricky. Relax. You're in good hands. Don't worry. Guess.
These all seem like interesting guesses, but I'm going to go with, are you ready? 3, 2.
I thought you were going to do 1.
We've got a B and a C.
Oh, sorry.
So Sarah thinks that it is Sarah, isn't it? It's not Sarah, right? It's Sarah.
Yeah.
You don't mind.
Either way, it's fine. I don't mind.
Sarah.
They both sound great to me. And you could say anything. You could call me anything in your voice, and I'd be like,
hey,
sure.
So you're going world's most northern distillery.
That's my guess.
And Chad thinks it's well, you're both correct. And everybody's correct because they also make Asgard single malt. So we're being very, very nice. Nobody leaves the quiz at the end this week on the World Whiskey Quiz with a 0. Everybody's getting a point. So everybody gets a point.
We got a point.
100%. And there is Greg's Whiskey Guide has already called it out. Generous Roy for question 1. Absolutely. It's not going to be like
very
that every week. I will take the rug out from under your feet one week and give you a really difficult one in question 1, and you'll answer willy-nilly thinking that it's a freebie, and it won't be, so be careful. But it is this week. Question 2. Which of these American whiskey producers has become synonymous with its local Gariana oak? Gary oak, it's sometimes called. Now, I'm not talking about bourbon specifically here. This is American whiskey. A, Balcones, B, Westland, or C, Stranahan's? A, Balcones in Texas, B, Westland, and I think they are in Washington State. I don't know. C, Stranahan's in Colorado. Westland, Seattle, is it Seattle and Washington?
Seattle's in Washington, yes.
Okay, so Westland's in Washington.
Okay, ready?
So 3, 2, 1, shoot.
Okay. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1.
We've got an A and a B. One of you are correct.
Oh.
Westland Gariana oak.
Oh,
Gary oak. Yeah,
Nice,
I've actually
Chad.
got some here. But this is an interesting hybrid for you guys because it's American whiskey, but it's made from barley,
Texas?
and
I don't know.
there's over 1,000 American distilleries making this stuff now. It's absolutely interesting, terrific, wonderful, flavor forward stuff. It's just some of it that I've tried recently. I tried one called King's I can't remember. It was that was rye from New York State, and my goodness, it was absolutely fabulous.
Kings County?
Sorry?
Was it Kings County?
Empire
Yeah,
Rye?
Kings County rye.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I'm looking to see if it's still there. I want to grab the bottle if I have it, but I don't. It's hiding. There it is. Sorry to be jumping off camera, but just this was a gift to me from the community, like you guys enjoy so much as well. It's only 45% ABV, but what's really interesting about this is that it's peated rye. It's not heavily smoky. There is you guys would certainly pick up the smoke in it, but it was just, you can see how much I've enjoyed this. Absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
American
They
whiskey.
make some good stuff.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Yeah. But well done, Chad. You're one ahead. Question 3. Yeah, I guess you guys will be guessing here, but Piccadilly Distillery is a favourite of Roy's. Located where? Which country is Piccadilly Distillery located in? You will be guessing. A, Tasmania. B, England. C, India. I've been raving about a release from Piccadilly recently. It was very inexpensive. It was sub £40, so sub $50 to you guys as well. And I absolutely demolished the bottle, quickly bought another one, demolished that too. What betrays how much you're enjoying whiskey is often not what you write about it or say about it. It's the level on the shelf, right? The level in the bottle betrays how much you're enjoying it. Guys, what would you say?
I'm ready.
Have you got the chat open?
Oh.
Close that. No, keep it open. It's absolutely fine. But there's a consensus in the chat. Anyway, on 3, 2, 1, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm torn between 2. All right, let's go.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so we both.
India.
Absolutely. Okay, so England is my first instinct, but I was like, that seems too easy.
Piccadilly sounds very English.
Easy.
And you've also got
Piccadilly.
You know, the colonial thing, you know, the Piccadilly is the name of the distillery. The whiskey is Indri. The expression was the Trini. It's non-age statement because it's tropical climate maturation, of course. 46% whiskey, less than £40. If there's any kind of whiskey that needs any country that's producing whiskey not to pick up that and say this is not only interesting but super, super good value. Incredible stuff. I need to replace it very, very quickly. Indian whiskey.
Never had any Indian whiskey. We should try it.
Absolutely.
I've had amazing times with Indian whiskey. Terrific stuff. Question 4. Single malt whiskey was first produced in the USA when? What year was single malt whiskey first produced in the USA? Obviously, we're talking about single malt here. A, was it 1963? B, 1985? Or C, 2005? Hoyt Hemphill is saying Penderyn has been on an interesting journey aquavitae. I remember when it was a very young whiskey. Yeah, it was very young, very jaggy, very loud, brash, a bit odd. Lots of women making the whiskey down there at Penderyn as well. Fantastic stuff to see that their transition, their renaissance, and them being held in much higher regard as time goes on. Yeah. Welsh whiskey, Penderyn, of course. You guys are guessing a wee bit here.
Ready? Yes. Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Chad is saying 63 and Sarah is saying 1985. You've leveled up, Sarah. 1985.
I was thinking that during the whiskey bust or whatever, the dark ages, that they probably were like, oh, Scotch is popular, so let's make a single malt in America, and maybe that'll bring the popularity of whiskey back.
I was just thinking
that was my thought process.
It had to be.
No, the bust in brown spirits, guys, hit Scotland much harder or just as hard as bourbon. It was
really okay. I didn't know.
The 1980s were devastating for us. We call it the dark years of the 80s. And 1983 was the real. We call it the cull of 1983. We lost something like 11 legendary distilleries in that one year. It was dire. It was really dire. And from that, what we call the whiskey lock was created. There was so much whiskey in warehouses all over the country, and nobody was buying it. So super interesting times. But yeah, Steve McCarthy, that time it was Clear Creek Distillery. started making malt whiskey in America from barley in 1985. It's now known as McCarthy's. Made it Clear Creek. Fantastic.
Interesting.
Total guess.
Question-
That was my thought process was wrong, but I was right.
There you go.
So now you guys are level as we go into the picture question. This is an image. Question 5 is always an image. We're looking at a distillery
Oh,
somewhere in the world. Are we looking at A, Shelter Point in Canada, B, Xuan in China, C, Union, Brazil?
Oh my goodness.
ooh.
Looking for clues. Not
Now,
sure.
I wonder if I can make this bigger for you. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Eh.
Enhance.
Can you zoom out?
Enhance.
I'm just kidding.
Enhance.
I have no idea. Okay, I have no idea.
All right.
right.
I just got to go with
I'm
my
just
first
gonna
instinct.
Yes.
It's going to be wrong.
All right, ready?
3, 2, 1, shoot. You went
Oh,
early.
wow. So
You took too long.
Chad is in Canada, Shelter Point, Canada, and Sarah is in Union, Brazil. This is
Yeah.
actually the first ever independent, non-state owned distillery in
In
China.
China.
China. It
Actually-
it was giving off a Canadian vibe.
I have no idea.
The biggest, we've already mentioned Diageo. They're the biggest Scotch whiskey kind of player, the biggest spirits globally, I think. But second to them is Pernod Ricard, a French company, and Pernod Ricard own this distillery, Xuan, in China. It's only got 2 stills right now, but yeah, China's becoming. This is probably the 4th or 5th largest distillery in China, malt distillery. I'm speaking specifically about malt.
Interesting.
Big players appearing in China, and the ownership is Diageo and Pernod Ricard as well. It's crazy, right? Crazy times.
Crazy times.
Question 6.
Speaking of,
Diageo has recently launched a bottling of Johnny Walker Master's Cut to celebrate World Whiskey Day.
True.
I'm just simply going to ask you, that's absolutely true. Take a bonus point, Chad.
all right, sweet.
It's the vPub quiz at the end. You can take as many points as you like. It's always you're only ever playing against yourself. So I'm just going to ask you
What
what
does
it
it
costs. What does this Johnny Walker cost? A, it costs £50 a bottle. B, it costs £200 a bottle. Or C, it costs £1,000 a bottle. Diageo have launched a Johnny Walker Master's Cut to celebrate World Whiskey Day. What does it cost?
I'm ready when you are.
All right.
All right, ready?
3, 2.
You don't go 3, 2.
Did I? Was that my
1,
cadence?
Shoot.
No.
Yes.
Ready? 3, 2, 1,
One.
shoot. All right.
Oh, cynical Sarah thinking £1,000 a bottle.
There were some expensive bottles
Yeah,
at the Johnny Walker Experience gift shop. There were some expensive bottles.
yeah. When you chase premiumization, there are expensive bottles, and this is a belter. To
Oh,
celebrate World
that
Whiskey
got
Day,
it.
they released 1,000 bottles only. 1,000 bottles. Perhaps only 1,000 people want to celebrate World Whiskey Day. No, only 1,000 people could potentially afford £1,000.
Can't afford it.
What did you think of it, Roy, when you had it? When you got your bottle?
Yeah. I tell you, I'd love to taste it. I would love to taste it. I'd love to taste what £1,000 limited edition bottle
£1,000?
tastes like.
Wild.
It's too much, man.
Too much.
It's too much.
Piss take, and the less I say about it here, keeping this vPub positive, the better, because I'll just have to bite my tongue. Ian Bruce is saying, is it natural? And you know the answer to that. Even if it's natural, Ian, they're not going to tell us on the bottle.
Oh,
Question 7. Spot the distillery located in Northern Ireland. I'm going to give you 3 distilleries here. All you have to do is tell me which one of these is in Northern Ireland. A, Ecklinville. B, Dingle. Or C, Adgefren.
Northern Ireland, you say?
Northern Ireland, specifically Northern Ireland, yes. So
I'm
I
ready.
know that you guys are potentially guessing here. Hoyt is saying, I'd rather have a bottle of the Green Label. I am not even buying Green Label anymore, Hoyt. I'm just in such a huff about their direction generally. And Yeah, buddy. I know what it's like.
All right.
What are we
Ready?
thinking?
3, 2, 1.
Ooh. Sarah thinks Dingle. I can tell you, Sarah, that Dingle is in the Republic of Ireland in the southwest. I'm sorry.
Oh
Chad.
no! I knew it was Ireland.
Adgeffren is the northeast of England. I'm afraid it's Ecklandville. You both struck out
Oh,
there.
bummer.
I believe you're
I was in
both
the right country.
you're both still level though, aren't you? You're both level. Are you keeping
think
score?
so.
Do we remember what the score is?
No, I think technically Sarah's ahead by 1, unless you really did count my true as a point.
I think
Well,
I am
it's not
ahead by
down to me
1.
to count it. It's up to you, buddy.
Yeah.
No.
I would say Sarah is still ahead. I think Sarah
And that-
is currently on
I think I have
4 for
3.
7. 3
Oh,
for 7?
4? I don't know. I think it's 3.
3 for
Okay,
yeah.
let's go with 3 then as we go into question 8. Which of these distilleries is famed for releasing a malt where the grain may be dried using sheep dung? So if we talk about local fuel sources, we're talking about using sheep dung. Is it A, Floki, B, Onjaba, or C, Elmwerk?
Well, it's obviously.
I have absolutely no idea. This is a total guess.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1.
Floki and Onjaba. Okay. Look at the chat right now. Look at the chat.
Whoa, look at all those super chats. Oh, wait.
I was on the wrong one.
On the wrong one.
Oh, a lot of A's.
Oh, no.
A lot of Floki.
You got it.
Is it A?
Jerry Miller has said C. Savar is in the country where this is made. Savar is in Iceland. He knows that despite all of those A's, the whiskey is called Floki, but the distillery is Elmwerk.
Oh.
So now I have
No
absolute
points.
outcry from the lounge because they are going to be raging, but there is a banana there. The banana skin is there. The whiskey is called Floki.
Oh.
The distillery is Elmwerk. They know better. They should know better. When the banana skin's there, they need to slow down. Savar is saying, Aquaviti, come on. He's a local boy. He knows he got it right. Dez is thrown in the banana skin emoji, of course, because
That
yeah,
was
lot
a
of people-
tricky one.
Yeah, I think I should get half a point for
No,
that.
Chad, you didn't know.
Well-
It was a total guess.
No, I knew.
This is the quiz at the end. It gets harder and harder as the questions go on, and then we finish. The 10th question is infamously called an asshat question. It is deliberately awkward. It's an obnoxious question. You'll see.
I can't wait.
On there, yeah. Question 9.
I once stepped in a pile of Floki.
Oh, jeez.
Question 9. Which of these flags is appropriate for the Vinaki distillery? Apologize for anybody listening podcast style, but it's illustrations tonight. Which of these flags is appropriate for the Vinaki distillery? A banner with a crest in the middle. The left-hand side is green and the right-hand side is red. I'm trying to help people listening. B, we've got a kind of St. George's cross style, a red cross on a white background, and the flag is blue. So it's a blue flag with a red and white cross. And then C, we've got a tricolour. On the left is green, the centre is white, and the right-hand side is red.
Okay.
Which of these flags is appropriate for Vinaki distillery?
Ready?
Ready?
Do you even recognise the flags,
3,
guys?
2, 1.
No, I don't recognize the flags. We both guessed one.
A.
We both guessed A.
Both guessed Vinaki. You think it's A.
I have no idea.
The majority of the lounge has got this right as well. B is Iceland, C is Italy, and A is correct. It's Portugal. The only malt distillery currently in Portugal. Over my shoulder here, I got a wee gift from a patron this week. I got a selection of whiskies called Woodwork Series from Vinaki Distillery in Portugal. I'm looking forward to getting into those. They're specifically using Portuguese wood fortified wines such as Madeira and things to mature their whiskies.
Ooh,
Well.
that sounds nice.
So here we go. Before we go into that at the end, how you guys doing? I think that's
You
you on 5, Sarah. Is that correct?
4 or 5. I
You-
can't remember.
Still
4.
at the score you
4.
had before. You haven't gotten one since then.
I just got one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. We both got it.
So 4-3.
4-3. So only the ass hat for Chad to level up. So the pass mark as it stands, everyone, currently is Sarah's score of 4. Let's see how we're doing. Graham Young on 8 out of 9. 3 out of 9. Doug Chrisop was being sarcastic and saying stellar. Greg's Whiskey Guide, 8 out of 9. Interesting. Didn't know they were doing whiskey, as I do love Madeira finishes. There you go, Greg in Paris. Good to see you in, buddy. I have to say, Team Sarah, Jose Martinez is celebrating for you, Sarah.
Thanks,
Come
Jose.
on. Nutty Squad.
He's my
I'm
nutty
looking
squad.
for Andrew Butler, the scholar, the gentleman that is Andrew Butler, is on 9 out of 9. He's looking for a 10 out of 10 tonight. Will the asshat see him through, or will it take the carpet from under his feet? Question 10, strap in. The global whiskey boom has many illustrative examples. One such is France, where they currently have how many whiskey distilleries? About the same as A, operating malt distilleries in England, B, about the same as operating distilleries in Ireland, or C, about the same as operating malt distilleries in Scotland. How many whiskey distilleries are producing in France? About the same as England, Ireland, or malt distilleries in Scotland. Do you see what I mean about a ridiculously obtuse, obnoxious? Not only do you need to know how many French distilleries there are, but you also need to know how many there are in England, Ireland, or Scotland.
Right, and Scotland, yeah.
This is
All right.
ass hattery.
Let's do it.
I have no idea, but okay.
3, 2, 1.
England for Chad, Ireland for Sarah.
I don't know. I feel like it's a trick question.
None of
In
them.
England, we are currently somewhere in the order of north of 30 distilleries. In Ireland, we're approaching 40. And in France, we're approaching 120.
Wow, I had no
almost
idea.
the same as Scotland. 130 odd, 134 in Scotland right now, almost the
Wow.
same. It's incredible, but we have to remember that it's much smaller scale. You know, there's not lots of huge kind of Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, Macallan-sized distilleries in France. But this
will you
is
go to
another
France?
illustration of the boom in global whiskey right now. In France alone, there are 120 distilleries.
Dang.
Fascinating stuff. Pedro Menezes is saying OMFG. What does that mean, Pedro? Can you spell out for me? General, I'm 8 out of 10. I'm looking for Andrew Butler. Is there any way that asshat did Andrew manage to scrape it past that one? I'll keep my eye out in the chat for him. Buddy, I hope you made it. You might have just made it. I hope you did.
Got a 4.
Let's see.
Well, the chat did a lot better than we
if
did.
I have to do that
There
better.
we are.
So what's the pass mark tonight, Sarah? 4? So there you go. All you needed to do to get a pass mark tonight was match or beat Sarah, and you've got a pass mark. 4 out of 10 does it. Chad, how did you get on?
I didn't pass.
That means that you have to come back again. We have to find another reason to get together and enjoy whiskey together, and you can participate in a wee vPub quiz at the end. And maybe next time I won't celebrate World Whiskey Day. I might do something that's much more indulgent. Maybe we could even work together, and you could bring a bourbon quiz.
Okay.
That could be fascinating. Peter Lee is saying,
Ooh, we could do that.
Peter Lee is saying Denise managed an 8 out of 10, her best score yet. Denise, fantastic, well done. Good to see you in, Peter. I hope you're not too tired tonight. And Hoyt to say nailed it. I remember being surprised by the output of France. Well done, Hoyt. Good for the celebration. And Jimmy Legg is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 39 months. Thank you so much for your support, buddy. And saying thank you, Malt Whiskey Yearbook. Shocking about France. Yes, those facts were gleaned from the Malt Whiskey Yearbook. You're absolutely right, Jimmy. And James DeGiulio is saying I will score better on replay tomorrow. Yes, you will. 10 for Andrew Butler. Hey, let's raise a wee glass to the gentleman scholar that is Andrew Butler for a 10 out of 10 on a quiz like that. Quite incredible.
10.
Congratulations, Andrew. Cheers. And I'm raising a
The last drop.
1989 vintage bourbon to cheers you to that. It's an incredible privilege.
Nice.
I think, I'll be honest with you, I love vicariously seeing my country, whether it's whiskey related or otherwise, through the eyes of other people. I think it's something we all, if we have pride in our country and we enjoy it, I think it's something we all should maybe get a wee bit of thrill and excitement from. when I first heard that you guys were coming here, I was a bit like, oh, but they're not going to have that invested thing where they're just really, really excited about the Scotch. They're not going to have that. They're coming here as bourbon folk. But when I met you in Edinburgh and saw the little twinkle in your eye and saw that you were already kind of feeling like it might be a kind of fun trip, I had confidence and I felt like it might be okay and that you might have fun. I'll say, Sarah, I already picked up from you that you were open and you were optimistic, and I could feel. And Chad was a wee bit more reserved, being the canny soul that he is. But I have to summarise by saying, Chad, watching your reaction to that Black Arts 5.1 tonight was the highlight for me. All it needs is one. All it needs is one for you to realise that, your lane is bourbon, your skill is bourbon, your love, your passion is bourbon, your channel is built on bourbon. You can be whiskey promiscuous, and I hope that you guys continue to do it. I've had fantastic fun sipping bourbon tonight, and I will continue to have fantastic fun sipping bourbon in the future. But I will still have a Scotch-focused channel, even if I do world whiskey quizzes occasionally, right? It's fantastic.
Yeah. We weren't expecting you to change lanes after those 6 samples
No,
or anything.
just like we won't after this trip.
Yeah.
That's right, because we have built an audience, we've built a community around whatever our vibe is and things. And if we do suddenly change, then it means a restructure of the audience. But I think what we don't need to kind of do step changes, but gradual kind of open-mindedness. Whiskey's teaching us to be like this more and more. And the more that we can stay open to all of these things, I think the benefit is for everyone. Daisy Leland is in saying, thanks, Roy, Sarah, and Chad for a great evening. Daisy, it's always fantastic to see you, and I hope you're keeping well. Helen is saying, fab, entertaining vPub this evening. Cheers, Roy, Chad, and Sarah. Thanks to you, Helen. And Graham Fraser is saying, thanks, Roy, Chad, and Sarah. Missed most of tonight through a tasting, so we'll catch up. Buddy, let's tell me how you do on that quiz tonight, because I think it was a tricky one. Well done, Andrew Butler. Sorry, it just jumped there. Des is saying, thanks, Roy, great guest, great evening, and a smashing, lousy quiz. Thanks, Des. And Roman is saying, thanks, Sarah, Chad, and Roy, for a fantastic evening. Too Slow Rob, good to see you. Thank you, Roy, and all the barflies. And Fernando is saying, thank you very much, Roy. Excellent talk. Nice to have had Chad and Sarah. Good night to all, and cheers to the barflies. And Rick Johnson is saying, thanks, Roy. Bringing Chad and Sarah to the vPub was brilliant. Here's to that, Rick. I'm going to raise a glass to my pals here and say thank you for this. I've taken the lid off my Pappy Van Winkle. I'm going to roll the credit service at the end. But if you've got a minute for me to raise a glass once we kill the stream tonight, that would be a pleasure too. But Chad, Sarah, thank you for coming to Scotland. Thank you for being so open-minded. But thanks for coming onto the vPub and sharing your experiences as well. And Chad, thank you for that expression when you sipped that Black Art. How does it go?
My pleasure.
Slancheva.
Slancheva.
Thank you, beautiful whiskey folk, dedicated barflies. You're all very dearly loved. I look forward to hanging out with you again next week. Hopefully, we'll have Leanne from Scotch on the Bayou here in the vPub with me. And hopefully, I'm going to get a chance to pour all of my very, very best whiskies for Leanne. I look forward to seeing you then. Cheers.